That seemed in the spirit of the SRC over there in the back corner. But actually, before we get there, who here is familiar with every person in this room and their roles? Hands up if you do, if you're familiar. No? Okay, great. Well, then let's do a bit of an introduction. Have you guys ended up, I missed the first.
Oh, we did this actually at the start of the day.
Oh, does everyone know the roles of everyone? No? Yeah. You've already forgot?
Repeated it a few times.
Did we repeat it a few times?
We haven't.
We haven't? Well, that's great. Let's rehash it to get that in our brains, and especially now that we can see it face to face. Let's start with Dion.
I'm Dia. I'm your president. I'm Redline, one of the officers.
I'm Alice. I'm the other officer.
Go along the table.
I'm Jen. I'm Councillor A.
I'm Luke. I'm Councillor A. I'm Councillor B. Ethan. Agricultural officer. I'm Cash. I'm the Marine Disability Officer.
And today I'm the Councillor A.
Jacob, Councillor A. Jamie, Education.
Yeah.
Emma, Environmental. Abasa, Councillor B.
Lovely. Good to see a good presence of councillors today. And who do we have with us online?
I was going to say, hi, I'm Eleanor and I'm the women's officer.
Lovely. Thank you for being here and joining us online.
No,
Okay,
all good.
First, we'll start with a bit of we've already rehashed this with Joel, but we'll rehash it once more because it is the more serious part of the SRC. So being acquainted with a bit of the important bits of the SRC charter and safer spaces is it's never a bad thing. So we'll rehash some of the bits here. What is the charter? It is a document that assists you do your job and understand your duties. Everyone is required to read the charter. Who has read the charter? Show of hands. Yeah, that's okay. Look, I'm not going to scorn you for not doing that, but I'd say by the 1st of December, which is the day you'll be beginning your positions, I recommend that you read the charter because in that charter actually identifies the explicit roles and responsibilities of your explicit position, as well as the roles and responsibilities that you have as an SRC member. So, and also your the specific roles. So there will be in there the role of Councillor A, role of Councillor B, role of President, role of Ethno-Cultural Officer. Every single person's duties are outlined in that document. So it's really helpful that you're acquainted with them because in the SRC is a bit of a grey area as to what we do. It helps kind of provide some clarity. What is ARC and what is its relationship with the SRC? So, as you know, it is an independent organization to UNSW, and ARC encourages students to take part in the student experience and advocacy sector. And part of this is through the support and financing of the SRC, PGC, other campaigns and pathways, but SRC is of course independent. We do have some form of contribution to ARC, and that is through the ARC board, where our president will be representing the SRC there at the board. So of course, some, not all decisions affect the SRC. That's why it is important to have a representative on the board fighting for our financing or any larger changes to charter, which have to go through the ARC board. So yeah, that's why it is important to know about that connection with ARC. So know that charter changes, even though we discuss charter changes and pass them within the SRC, they have to again then go through the board for final approval to then be amended, to then be attached. Okay. What is the SRC? Yep, read the charter. It gives you a fairly good outline of what we are, but I'm sure, as you know, it is very much within the name to represent the rights, experiences, and demographics of diverse and also interests of students here on campus. The role. So, yep, it represents, I think very much, I think what I just spoke to there. It deals with issues relevant to UNSW students. Principal functions include formulating and organizing activities, strategies, and campaigns that enhance the interests of UNSW students, and then working towards the aims of these ideas. Reviewing the performance and ensuring the proper functioning of all parts of the Student Representative Council and the university. So we do have that semi-oversight especially in regards to student-facing policy and functions. Overseeing the performance of elected office bearers is the general role of the SRC. Recommending policies and other associated documents to the board and to UNSW, and liaising with ARC bodies, and other UNSW departments as appropriate and as per the objectives of whatever outcome you're trying to meet. So almost every type of advocacy goal, campaign goal, SRC outcome, we'll need to engage some external body. Our prime job is looking outwards and focusing on the outwards, building on the outwards, because that's what affects students. And so as a result, we're going to be incoming and combating, hitting, interacting with a lot of external systems, and the incredibly complex, annoying, and frustrating bureaucracy of the UNSW systems. I still struggle to wrap my head around it to this day because they continue to chop and change. Take on top of that, of course, the SRC president and any other necessary officers and councillors will be having frequent meetings with many of the vice chancellors to better actually understand these shifts and change. EDI recently, the Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Department recently had a big reshift as well. So that confuses, I guess, who we campaign for that process, who we need to speak to in instructing specific change, especially because ELS falls and student disability services fall under that bracket. So where am I going with this? In essence, if you're confused as to who you need to interact with, that is okay, because these systems do chop and change. That is why the SRC president and the GenSec will be maintaining frequent communication with many forms of the internal UNSW team to be able to keep on track of who we need to talk to in making change. Okay, basics for councillors and officers. Representing students at council meetings by raising and discussing student issues and proposing solutions. Promoting and being involved in activities and campaigns of the Student Representative Council to students, reporting on activities at each ordinary meeting of the council, ensuring that an adequate distribution of councillor assistance is distributed across all departments. So in essence, if you're a councillor, you shouldn't be teetering along. You should be within your greatest capacity supporting the jobs and roles as officers, and also general SRC campaigns as well. I'll speak more to that later. Maintaining the confidentiality and privacy of student disclosures, apart from where the immediate safety of the student or others is at risk. We'll go through that as well. That is covered in the SRC charter, but more explicitly in the Safer Spaces policy. Adequately preparing for council meetings, including but not limited to reading reports, presenting papers as well. And there's more. Acting as a student advocate for student issues within their relevant portfolio. Who here knows what an advocate is? Can anyone define what an advocate is? Don't be afraid. Even a wrong answer is an answer that I'd like to hear. Anyone online? What an advocate is?
I mean, just someone who cares about and is willing to, I guess, fight for or speak about concerns that others have raised, I guess.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else want to add? Anyone else want to add on to that? Maybe, yeah, Conroy? Yeah. General, we resonate with that. Yeah, 100%. When we're advocating for student issues within the relevant portfolio, what that means is when we're advocating for, when we're doing SRC campaigns, when we're doing SRC work, it has to have some form of tangible impact and effect on our student demographics, right? Because our prime job is to represent students' needs and student issues on campus. So when we're advocating, we're not just speaking to the concerns facing students, we're not just speaking to the things impacting students, but we're also speaking to the system as a whole and how students fit into that. Are they included? Are they fair and equally represented in the system? Do they have a fair and proportionate impact and ability to ensure that their education experience is representative of their individual needs, right? Does that make sense? Yeah? A scale of 1 to 10? I say that a lot because it's hard to gauge. Yeah? 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 Okay, not bad, not bad. We'll continue. Being the spokesperson for their collective social media. So on your onboarding processes, if you have not had it already, they'd be transferring the social media sign-ins for you, and you'll be looking over that. Yep, deciding on how to spend the budget for your portfolio, subject to the president's approval, which we already discussed. And there's also greater details in charter if there's any ambiguities. Oh, there's more. Yep, organizing campaigns and events for your portfolio and collective, convening meetings for their relevant collectives, reporting on the activities, campaigns, and issues in, well, it's no longer Thoronka, it's Gamamari. And yeah, so that's one of the many student medias and platforms that you can utilize to either raise that student voice or gather student awareness around a specific campaign. And ensuring that you're being active on those external platforms helps bring people into the SRC, be aware, and essentially help fulfill the purpose of the collectives, which I'll speak to later. Attending officer meetings as scheduled by the president. So the president will be organizing as much as they deem appropriate, frequent one-on-ones with all SRC officers and councillors in ensuring that they're fitting along their project timelines for potential SRC campaigns, specific or general. What I mean by that is if it's specific to a collective, specific to the individual, or general SRC campaign that you're having some form of contribution on. Yep, attending meetings with the university committees and other relevant bodies. That includes things like the Gender Violence Committee, the Disability Inclusion Action Plan Committee, a number. There are a number, and a number of our OBs and councillors sit on them as representatives to the SRC. If you want to know which ones, or if you have a particular interest in a particular council or want to get involved in a particular issue, reach out to your president and GenSec, and they should be able to line you up appropriately. In the handover documents, which will be provided, I'll be providing shortly, the rest of, there will be an outline of all those opportunities to get involved. And we'll be also speaking to those as well. Being available to members of the student body for consultation about issues relevant to the specific demographics or collectives. And yep, more for officers. Yes, of course, outlined in charter. There are some other stuff I want to speak to. Yeah, okay, I'll skip over that. For council meetings, generally council meetings are mandatory. You have to attend them all. If not, you have to provide an apology, but that apology that has to be approved by the SRC president first. And if the SRC president is unavailable, GenSec. Yeah, okay, so formally when a person, so let's say you have a matter for decision, or I haven't put that there. Let's say you have a matter for decision, right? So the mover would have then 2 minutes to speak to that. I'm sure plenty of you have that experience within those SRC meetings, but for those foreign to it, the mover will have 2 minutes and there will be a series of speakers for and against as listed here. And the SRC president and the GenSec's job will be to keep that to time. And yes, of course, apologies. So if there are things that prevent you from being in that meeting. And there are proxies. Who is familiar with proxies? That's a big population. Would anyone care for me to speak further about proxies? It's okay. If you need to get these stuff down pat now, because it'd be much helpful when you get into your roles.
Maybe just speed run it.
Yep. Okay. I don't know how to speed run anything. I'm a yakka. But yeah, generally for proxies. So let's say if you can't make it, instead of submitting apologies, you can also submit a proxy. So you can either get one of the SRC members, a councillor or an officer, to represent you and your votes. So that will be submitted. There are a proxy form on the SRC inside. There's a proxy form. It's pretty easy to identify. You can even Command F at proxy form. You go to it. Once you have the consent, of course, of the office bearer or the councillor for them to be the proxy, you input their ZID, you put your ZID, and then you say to them, you demonstrate which motions you vote yes, no, abstention for, right? So that's a good way of going around those apologies and those absences. If you can proxy, that is helpful, but it should not be used as an excuse to miss meetings out altogether, but there's only in extreme circumstances. So in an extreme circumstance, put forward a proxy. If you do not have capacity or time to put proxies, submit apology. Is that clear and concise? That's as concise as I think I can be. Yep, general conduct. So this is the more important bit Joel spoke to you about before, ensuring that all office bearers and councillors are heard, ensuring that all discussions occur in an efficient and constructive manner, ensuring that decisions and debates are completed with a formal resolution recorded in the conclusions reached. So if there is time for debate and discussion, maybe there can be capacity for amendment. And trying to find amendment is, I guess, the most productive form of debate possible surrounding a topic. If a discussion or if a motion is pushed down on a sole matter of a small aspect of whatever motion that is, there is capacity and there should be room for that debate to be opened up and for an amendment to be put forward to achieve a resolution. There's no reason why a thing should be voted down for a minimal thing and cause for debate. Yep, Conroy.
So if there's multiple amendments, what's the structure we go to?
It's a very good question. And that's why there's that open discussion for debate. So the SRC president or whatever officer, depending on if they would like to put forward an amendment, would put forward they can put forward a series of amendments, A, B, and C, or the SRC president can, after hearing the discussion and debate, try and list some potential amendments in an order, and then that will go to vote. So that will be, of course, the SRC's discretion, and also as your roles as officers and councillors, your discretion on whether you think there could be a potential solution by amendment, and you put that forward. But it will be the SRC's president's discretion to then take that to vote. Okay, where was I? Was that clear and concise, Conroy?
Yeah, so basically the president decides, like if multiple councillors put up different amendments, which is what the president wants to do.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
right.
Or seek to amalgamate them. Yep.
Yeah, and then they go in order, but also many of them are amenable to
Yep. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, thank you for that clarification. It's good. Participate in, yep, of course, naturally participate in discussion in a respectful manner in accordance with section 5 of the charter. We'll speak to that later. Hello.
Hey.
Thank you for coming in. Yep, disallowing any behavior that is in breach of the SRC's safer spaces policy, prevents the meeting from running efficiently and constructively, and remove repeat offenders from the meeting. So that is in the instance where they're preventing the smooth flow of the SRC meetings. If there is a person repeatedly interrupting the general procedures. So if there is a speaker and they're trying to speak on top of the speaker's right of like allocated time, and it's a continued occurrence, or and if we'll go further, other misconduct that can be distracting, discouraging, re-traumatizing, or other topics that may be quite sensitive. Yes. Yep. Okay. So there is a couple of bits here. Yep. Okay, this is the general overview. So if that is breach, if general conduct is, if there is a breach in conduct, the chair of the SRC will, naturally, it's their job to disallow breach to their greatest capacity under safe spaces policy by external members in any official meeting behavior or in collectives. Yeah, and I think I spoke to that. And that is, of course, after 2 warnings. They issue 2 warnings because the person just interrupts once, and they boot them. And that's not really fair process. So yeah, in circumstances where it is or there is a significant disruption or violation of the safer spaces policy. So let's say there was a comment that was queerphobic, racephobic, disability phobic, in any way sought or had the effect of belittling a demographic of students, one warning will be issued prior to action. And under the safer spaces policy, that action could be, and I think we'll definitely discuss that further. You could either be, and like Joel said, you could be possibly, if there is a violation of safer spaces policy, booted out for 30 days based on a interim investigation into the conduct, a potential escalation to CIO, depending on its seriousness, contacting security, or a potential investigation by the president as to whether that individual may need to participate in additional training, let's say for gender violence or other insensitive issues that may require greater education on. We'll be going through those educations further down the track as well, though. Yep, and this is of the charter, if I am correct. Yep, I think this is, I'm trying to recall. One of them is the safer spaces policy, one's the charter. Yeah, this is the safer spaces policy, right? So this is the general misconduct and grievance for the safer spaces policy. So if they're in breach, yep, the verbal warning, instruction to leave the space and contact UNSW security if relevant, if there is an immediate danger to the individual. And another helpful note as well is that all UNSW security is mental health trained. So if you believe that there is going to be a mental health crisis, or there is, contacting security also helps in that matter, as they are trained mental health first responders. So that is also a helpful tool to access for immediate support. Yep, and yeah, you can request a temporary 30-day suspension that is upon the president's discretion following a appropriate investigation process, in which consultation with ARC Legal is definitely recommended. And there is greater detail to that, to the safer spaces policy and in the charter. Yep. And of course, that has to be, as Joel said, I'm sure you're all around for that. That needs to be done ASAP in writing, right? So it delegitimizes the claim if it was done 5 weeks later over a call. This has happened, yada yada has happened. So trying to capture it ASAP in writing, having it corroborated by a secondary person, very much helps in substantiating that, right? Because again, 30-day suspensions are quite serious. So there will, unfortunately, there is some of that additional precautionary layers just to ensure that the system runs effectively. Yep, okay. This is the additional bit under the charter. This was the amended push under the 2024 SRC in response to grievances. So, yep, if there is any issues in regards to bullying, harassment, discrimination, and other misconduct, and this also falls within SRC spaces. So any campaign, any event, any even within the safer spaces. So even within your safe spaces that the OBs have to monitor and maintain, if there is bullying, harassment, discrimination, or any other misconduct in any form, an action can be taken. So that ban can be taken against that individual accessing and using those spaces. And that is to protect victim survivors who, in which those spaces are built and sustained for, and of course to ensure the safety of all other people within these SRC spaces and meetings. And of course, yes, to ensure this, so let's say there was a collective meeting, right? Or even two people chatting in the SR there. So you go, let's say you pop down to the disability space. There's a couple of people in there using the amenities, chatting, using the interactive tools. Great, it's good. Now someone says something, someone does something that could constitute as harassment, let's say. You and any other person can, in writing, submit a or report the issue to the SRC president, And that can either be escalated and investigated by the SRC president, or if the SRC president is involved by the GenSec, or depending on the issue, it may need to go straight to the ARC executive officer or the CIO, because some issues, while the SRC can investigate issues that go to CIO have to be the first point of contact for incredibly serious issues of bullying, harassment, discrimination, and of course breaches in the UNSW Code of Conduct. So this is supposed to be secondary and complementary to those processes. It's not a replacement, right? So that should be the first priority. And then this is a second line of defense to ensure the individual's safety within the SRC after that's done. So in no way is it a substitute. That is priority. But prior to that, of course, an attempt for informal resolution should be exhausted if appropriate, right? Large-scale bullying, large-scale harassment, discrimination, misconduct, GV, SV, or of any kind has given serious weight, right? It is up to you. You can consult the president, you can consult the general secretary, you can consult ARC Legal as to whether you can attempt an informal resolution. But of course, there is a part of discretion there, right? But again, as well, it also depends on how you feel. If you feel like there is capacity for that, of course, please prioritize and pursue that. But if it is serious, CIO. Provide advice and recommendations for next steps is what the SRC president can do, and determine a resolution. So, of course, that can be then escalated to the ARC executive officer, who will consult ARC Legal, HR, and can consult CIO, and can escalate that then further to ARC board, because that's that script. Agenda, general admin stuff. They can be submitted 8 days before the meeting. They'll be distributed 5 days before the meeting, and minutes will be distributed 7 days after the meeting. I know I've been pretty bad at that. Noting my shortcomings. I think that should have been before. Sorry, a bit of a jumble. Councillor papers. So there are 3.
Next year, I would probably end up circulating the motions to the public before SRC starts. So in 5 days, it'll go out to the public.
Yeah.
Just noting that.
Yeah, that's up to your discretion. Yeah, that can be done. That'd be cool. Yeah. And you could use the SRC newsletters as a platform to do that as well. There are 3 matters that you can put forward to the SRC during these SRC meetings. And mind you as well, your entire duty does not circulate around these SRC meetings. You have to be doing things outside of them too, but this is the big bit. So there is matters for noting. So letting the council know that you are pursuing a certain item, that a certain matter has occurred, and that maybe further down the track there may be an additional matter for discussion or matter for decision in response to that. So let's say the NDIS bill may, because let's say the NDIS bill further down, a couple of months prior, right? There was a lot of ambiguity around it. Maybe you could note that it may have potential effects. And then further down the track, while more information is released at the next meeting, have a matter for decision or a matter for discussion in regards to that. Does that make sense? Or it could be, again, like there's a campaign that you're running. I thought I'd note that to everyone. Let's say the ethnocultural officer is running a event. That could be a matter for noting, right? So just it could be a point to raise general awareness about a campaign event, and just have that on the paper, have people be aware about that. So that general stuff, right? Matters for discussion. Now that's general matters. If, let's say, there is a policy paper that has been released by the UNSW, that's a draft, it's been open to consultation, you could bring that draft to the SRC meetings as a form of a matter for discussion, right? So there you can discuss if individual officers have a potential issue with that policy, right? And have that open for discussion there, to then be taken away, formulated and edited to accommodate those discussions, and then submitted forward with those amendments as a matter for decision to approve then. Like, does that make sense? As a recommendation to submit back for review. Am I making any sense here? I'm not sure. I'm yapping. I'm trying to recall my previous experiences with it. That's convenient. But to then expand from matters of decision, which are the most common, they can be recommendations to the board, resolutions to the council, general affirmative actions. And in them as well details what explicitly you want actioned within these levels. So it can be multiple, it could span across those areas. Yep, officer reports. So you have to submit these reports, I think it was 8 days in advance. Oh, let me double check that. Sorry. It's even hard for me to sometimes get a hold of. I'll be sharing these slides as well because they're really convenient and helpful in recalling that. That's right. Yep, okay, 8 days. So submit your reports. Try and aim for 8 days in advance. Officer reports should disclose something along the lines of meetings that you've attended in your capacity as an officer, past activities or initiatives, outcomes of collective meetings, upcoming campaigns and activities, or what you've done in your timeline of them, the amount of time spent on council duties since the last meeting, any other significant items, right? So if there was a discussion in the previous meeting, documenting, I guess, any updates from that. Okay, and general councillor reports. Councillor reports. Details of active participation in collective meetings, participation or assistance in preparing for events run by officers, providing office bearers suggestions for improving events or collectives, endorsing the work of office bearers who have run successful meetings or events, proposals of issues that may be affecting UNSW students, upcoming activities and strategies for supporting officers in the coming month, and an additional bit that I believe is so paramount to the role of officers, outreach and the success of potential outreach. I believe officers are so paramount to the SRC as people on the ground, viewing the issues of impacting students within the classrooms, within events, and generally on or off campus. And you guys as well are our active campaigners, letting people know of events, letting people know of campaigns, letting people know that we exist and we're present and we're here to support students. Having that documented is so incredibly helpful because we need as many people as possible to know that we exist so we can create the largest amount of change. So we have that student input. So yeah, that's I think as well a role of councillors that to add there. Yep, general conduct at all times. So in your general capacity of doing anything as a councillor or office bearer, acting honestly and in good faith, but sometimes that may not. While actions in honesty and good faith are great, try to your greatest ability to have also actions and opinions that are informed by students, right? So that can either be through research, through general survey, through other investigations and campaigns, or through collective. Not improperly use their position or information obtained in their position. Exercise care and diligence in their duties, observe standards of equity and respect in dealing with every member of the university community, not act in any matter likely to bring the council into disrepute, fulfill their responsibilities as set out in the charter, comply with the directions given under authority of this charter on the regulations of the Constitution, treat other council members with respect and in accordance with Section 33 of the UNSW Student Code of Conduct and the SRC Safe Spaces Policy. Sorry, remove that. Ignore the 9. Yeah. Is there any ambiguities there? Is there any confusion? Would you like me to elaborate on any of those items? You're more than. I'm happy to. Yeah, you're all good. So thumb, cool. How about people online? We have one person.
I'm all sweet. I think there's 2 of us now, actually. But yeah, I'm all good. That all makes sense.
Perfect. I don't want to yap about things you guys already know. Yep, general dispute resolution. So if you have any issues between you and another person who is, I guess, having some capacity as a collective member, or if there's an issue between other officers or between other members and representatives of the UNSW SRC, I recommend, of course, going to the SRC president to support in dispute resolution. If it is with the president themselves, because who doesn't have beef with DR? I'm joking. You can laugh. Yeah, you can also go to the general secretary as well. And if it's with the general secretary and with the president, you go to the ARC executive officer, which is Joelle, who was chatting here prior. I'm pretty sure that she covered those, but it's good to rehash. But again, any queries whatsoever, if you have any concerns, if there's any ambiguities, it is always best to ask questions. So even if you're not really sure about a way to go about anything, asking questions is always great. Do not think that you're going to be a bother in any way by asking a question. So prioritize that first and foremost. If you are confused, if there is an ambiguity you're not sure about, ask and ask. Because that helps with SRC best practice, especially in an area of work where there is such gray area. Issues relating to work health and safety. Yes. So you can submit an email to the WHSREP committee. So, and yeah, ARC-HR. Usually my use of that in the past is with the SRC safe spaces. So there have been, after a big storm or after some time, let's say the blinds have fallen down, I've contacted them, they've helped repair that. Or for general other issues, if you think that's a concern to work with health and safety. If there is, let's say, within the spaces, a overhead light that's blinking, that could be an issue for students with epilepsy. So that would also warrant sending them an email or a buzz. And other general issues there that I'm trying to think of at the moment from previous experience. I know some spaces, depending on their age, like the current QC space, has some asbestos. I know, which is absolutely outrageous.
Heavy metals in the water.
Don't forget the heavy metals, of course. So that is an issue. That would warrant contact ASAP, especially if you find a student trying to pin something up on the wall using a nail pin, poking a hole in the asbestos. I'd actually contact them, but also
There's a lot more.
Yeah,
This is a very
I know there's a lot more issues, but yeah, all of that warrants a contact from WHS, and most especially EM, estate management should be dealing with those issues. If you're getting nowhere, so we'll be talking about that later, getting around UNSW barriers. But if you run into barriers with the WHS, with EM, the president should be supporting you in navigating that. We'll speak more about that later. Operational functions of the SRC. And yep, informal resolutions with the persons involved if appropriate. So matters reported to the SRC in writing. So any complaints by general students. Yep, should the SRC or PGC president be party to the dispute? Yep, I think I already went through this. All good. Yeah, already spoke to that. Yep, and if the SRC president is within that as well, that'll also warrant you to contact HR. So you're allowed to do that, but I'd recommend contacting Joelle first. They are absolutely lovely at triaging, so they're a good point of contact. Yep. Okay. Yeah, that's the. I think I spoke to that prior as well. So it's good to know that I'm getting ahead of my slides. Those are the potential consequences for breaching the safe spaces policy or UNSW code of conduct. So an official written warning can be one. Further training, depending on, again, the issue, because a lot of it has to do with the gravity and the context. Yep, referring to internal or external mediation, suspension of allowance or removal from the UNSW SRC Council, suspension from SRC spaces, either interim or permanently. and reporting on to UNSW misconduct if identified as appropriate. And yeah, so actually greater information on the handover should also be in the charter. So if you believe, I think that's also a good reference point for all of our incoming SRC officers. I think you should also review that to ensure that you're getting everything that you need out of your handover, right? Ensuring that you're getting all the essential info. If your person's just sending you a link with all of the new social media pages and the sign in, that's not a handover. So there's greater details on that there. That's quite helpful. So very much the charter is essential reading, and safer spaces policy is essential reading. Now let's get to the other bits. Let's actually get to council background and continuity. While this was first, I thought it would be easier first to go over charter because that is that's the really important bit. I think this gets more exciting now, fun-ish, I hope. General overview of what I'm yapping about is, the focus on the outgoing council learnings. So what I've learned and what the other officers have learned. Some of you as previous SLC representatives may agree, may disagree, happy to hear. Tips and advice, getting things done. And also very importantly, how to balance life and SRC expectations. Before I go into this, do we want to have just a quick 5-minute break, or would you like to power through it? I know I've been speaking at you for a bit.
Do you need a break?
Oh, I can just keep talking till I drop.
Okay, keep going.
Does everyone vibe with that? Yeah, lovely. I'll take a break after this, and then you guys get some refreshments. With each other, instead of me yapping at you. Yes. All right, learnings. I think one of the biggest bit is that the SLC needs to be the leading advocates for students in turmoil due to student shifts in attitudes and circumstances on and off campus, right? What I'm speaking to here is that, not to diss the uni, but that's pretty much our jobs, sometimes they do not actually account for a lot of the geopolitical issues occurring off campus, or the shifts in policy, changes in, just changes in the environment that aren't necessarily student facing, but have impacted students on campus, whether that be personally, oftentimes it is familiarly, or in somehow impacts their learning or their access to the learning. So it's very much a good flag here that should you see an issue externally or even internally on campus, right? If there's a policy, even if it's not student facing, it's always good to bring it to council, possibly as a matter for noting, possibly as a matter for discussion, to see if there's going to be any student facing impacts and to then account for that. Unfortunately, and I think this is very much a call to the SRC, unfortunately, the UNSW does not do this well. This is where we need to be. We need to be doing it on their behalf, unfortunately. We need to be calling them to attention on these issues and how they're impacting students. In my role as SRC president, I found myself doing this a lot. And unfortunately, due to the bureaucratic system, we're often the most exposure they get in terms of students. So that's definitely what we should be doing. So that's a matter for learning as well. General tips and advice, and I think that may be carried by Dia. More than welcome for her to delete this entire slide, so I'd love to hear what you think. I think communicating about important SRC business via emails and Teams is paramount. That's why I was very much prompting this year to get that on, to get people communicating via Teams and email. Having this is really important because it's a paper trail. So should there be any issues, should there be any prompted investigations by UNSW or other external bodies, having a paper trail is incredibly important, especially if there's reports for misconduct or anything like that, or mismanagement. So getting it in writing, very important. Even if your preferred point of contact is via phone calls, that is okay. You can always do team calls, but I very, very, very much cannot stress recommendations for following that up with an email, just to confirm what we've discussed in our phone call, right? And then listing the points there. This helps as well in us keeping people to account, right? So if we've done a call with estate management, or if we've done a call with a VC, right? And they've given us these promises, they've said they deliver on these things, get it in writing, submit it by COB, close of business that day, and get them to confirm that, right? Because they can forget, or sometimes they have a different recollection of things. That's why it is very important to get it in writing, right? But you may, if you'd like, communicate in messenger for emergency situations or less casual, or more casual things. Yeah, like let's say if you guys want to do a hangout, please do. That'd be nice. Yep, and councillors should be getting involved in the SRC collective SRC campaigns and the campaigns of officers. So in terms of what do I do as a councillor, that is not the entire role and responsibility, but that is a big portion of it, and is incredibly helpful to pushing on the continuity of the SRC. And like I said prior, councillors are our voice on the ground in any space, class, or event. Find a way to let people know that we're here and we're here to help and we're here to advocate for their rights. And of course, be forgiving and respect others. Now, to go back to my point of, letting people know that we're here and we're here to help, don't be scared as to how to advocate towards this. I'll be supporting DR in releasing frequently at the beginning of term 1, 2, and 3, a general guide as to how to give the SRC spiel, a general way of working, and a couple of contact points, which will be helpful. So even then, just copy and pasting, passing that on to your tutor and your professor is incredible help, and disclosing that in your councillor reports is great, because then you let people know that you're doing your job. Lovely. Next slide. How to get things done. Divide and conquer. So campaigns are tough and they're huge, and you guys are students. Sometimes you may need to prioritize your academia, sometimes you may need to prioritize your personal life, and that is expected because you're humans, right? That's why it's important to calculate for that in your work. Your personal life and your academia may appear on your work, but you should be accounting for this so it minimizes that impact. It minimizes it as much as possible. So that's why delegation and cooperation are so paramount. So today we're going to be providing the space for you guys to get together to talk about some possibly shared ideas and potential things you want to do moving forward. So that way you can then, once you get in your positions 1st of December, link up with who you need to link up, delegate, and construct timelines. Another helpful thing is knowing who is who. What I mean by that is knowing who does what in the UNSW system. Like I spoke to prior, incredibly complicated, incredibly annoying, too convoluted. So speaking to your SRC pres as much as possible and your GenSec will be very helpful. Speaking to the ARC board, they also know a few bits as to who to speak to, very helpful, because sometimes if you're trying to get tangible change on campus, while the people on the ground actually see the work that you're doing, that may not be going up the ladder. Because again, intense bureaucracy, the stuff at the bottom sometimes aren't even hitting the top. So you need to know who is at the top, and then on to the next point, knowing who is the boss of who, knowing who is the boss of the person at the top, right? While it'd be great to accelerate everything to Attila, it's better to go to exactly the specific people that are in charge of that change. And if they aren't able to make that change, escalating it further, because A, it builds pathways of legitimacy, B, that's the correct way to advocate, and C, if we keep doing that, they may not listen to our responses. So following the right paths helps build the legitimacy of the SRC, at least internally, making them comply with our work. Now, that's of course that's not everything, that's not the end all be all, but it is part, and it is some advice that I'm providing. And yep, like I said prior, keeping consistent timelines. So when you're building your timeline at the beginning of the year, knowing what outcomes you want, right? Knowing that by this day you want to have a campaign. So that means in these couple of weeks prior, you need to get approval from posting from the president. This couple of weeks prior, you need to have the design approved. This couple of weeks prior, you need to have, I guess, a campaign plan, right? Of your objectives, how many people you want as signatories to a campaign, how how many people you want involved, how many people you need involved. So having that timeline is so helpful. And accounting then, of course, for any obstructions and obtrusions, very helpful, very helpful. Yep. And balancing life with SRC expectations. Now, I'm not perfect at this, as those that are currently in office do know. So if I can impart something, we want to change the world, and that is great. I think every person in this room is incredibly ambitious and wants to derive some form of change, and that's beautiful. That's what the SRC needs. But to ensure your continuity and self-preservation and ensuring that you create change, focus on 1 or 2 campaigns or SRC outcomes is really is a recommendation to just ensure that you can meet those ends, but ensure that you're accounting for your personal circumstances, unforeseen circumstances, and your academia. And also scheduling in time for yourself allows you to schedule in time for yourself. In caps, seek help from others. Do not be the lone ranger. Even if you're the one office bearer or the one councillor, it is the Student Representative Council. So if you're doing a campaign on your own, while you think that's manageable, I don't agree with that. Sure you can, but I recommend that you do things in 2s or more, just to ensure that you're getting the appropriate support that you need and deserve, and you're getting the outcomes as optimal as possible. Have fun with it. So of course, while a lot of the work is student rights, student advocacy, you're allowed to do some things for fun, right? You're allowed to run, groups that go out for drinks. You're allowed to run trivia. You're allowed to do things that are fun if you think there's a need for it. But if you think that you'd benefit from it too, right? I'm providing that room for that now, right? You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to do that. Enjoy the student outreach and recognize that it's an important part of the job. It is very much so. So that's why I emphasize that to counsellors and students at the beginning of T1, T2, and T3, emailing your counsellors and tutors, letting your fellow students, letting your professors and tutors know that we exist. We're here to help. We're promoting student rights on campus. So paramount to the job that we do. And again, realistic timelines, to account for all those things, and group projects too, as well, because we know that we probably end up doing all the work. I'll let you guys have a quick break, and we'll come back to how to deal with UNSW. I'll slot in time. We'll come back at 2:10. We'll come back at 2:10. If you have any questions, I'm here. And I'll probably speak to them if I think it's relevant. I'll speak to them further. But go get a drink, have a breather. Okay, we'll be starting now. Lovely. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so now to the big stuff. We've gotten through the bit of the nitty gritty, a bit of the admin. You guys were lucky enough to miss it. I'm joking. But now, let's get to the stuff. How do we deal with UNSW? When we hit a barrier, what do? Make big fire. That is a joke. That's my try at humor. Now that I've hit the humor mark, let's go to the serious stuff. So there are multiple pathways that can be done individually or together as complementary. So there is the collaboration and cooperation path, or there is the campaigning path. So this requires mutual understanding, mutually compatible goals, good faith, open and respectful communication, degree of lobbying, and meetings with management. So this is essentially working your ways inside of the system. And then there's, of course, the campaigning externally, right? So even though the campaigning also has a degree of lobbying, this is more externally based. So, so there is, of course, a requirement for change, and there is a barrier to that need for change. There's a strategy to address that. So there are actionable items. There's a clear list of demands. There is a buy-in from students, so it meets student interests, which we'll speak to later. And there's a level of professionalism and accountability. So, of course, following due process, ensuring meeting conduct and integrity. Yeah, so general path 1. This is a note left from Paige. So while this is rarely the truth, this is something that can be done. But in essence, it details having discussions with your SRC president, understanding your points of contact, participating in any potential groups or discussion groups, and ensuring that they're not tick box mechanisms, but ensuring that they are tangible pathways for change and working within those systems, having the list of demands and items and escalating them, climbing them up the ladder, and pushing on that point to get change. Now that works for when there is people within the system that are unfortunately, they do not know and they're not that acquainted with student needs and demands and the issues facing students. So while they are well-meaning, want to make change, they may not be aware of the external situation. So by bringing that to them, they may have capacity to say yes, but some people, which is not often the case, but some people can also, even though you followed this process, just say no, right? So there is also the campaigning process, the campaigning pathway. So naturally, the SRC is a space for activism. This does not mean it is exclusively a place for activism. What I mean by that is activism can also be done in collaboration with a number of clubs and societies that also want to push for a certain change because it's affecting, let's say, a certain demographic of students, or it's facing or it has tangible impacts on those clubs and societies or the people within those clubs and societies. Collectives as well have a huge place in this campaigning process. So when you're wondering what the roles of collectives are, ethnocultural collective, disability collective, it's that space for campaigning. It's a space for that group-led complaining and directed and collaborative advocacy. And the reason why these spaces are allow for that is because that's the direct spot for student buy-in. It's the heart of the machine for student participation, and it allows us to have a tangible and true understanding of the student hunger, the want for change, finding those that want and need change, getting them involved can be done through collectives, but of course they can be done through campaigns as well. But this is a good way to maintain that relationship with those people that need and want change through the collective systems. Do not get comfy. What I mean by that is once you've attained an outcome, that is absolutely great. Or maybe they may give you an alternative. While that alternative may be nice and it can be taken, it should only ever be taken on the condition that it will equal as to its greatest capacity the same student outcome as you wanted for the original outcome, right? If it's not, if it's incredibly piecemeal and not really what you've asked for to begin with, you continue to be campaigning. Do not get comfy if they've given you something. It may not be anything at all. And if they do give something, if you work the system, they say, okay, great, we'll do that. You should not get comfy in the fact that they will do that. Oversee. We are an oversight mechanism. Oversee that they follow up on their promises, get it in writing, and you continue to work that chain of command and ensuring that everyone and all the peoples within this system do what they need to do. We appreciate when you protest and where and when it is needed. We need signatures and we need numbers. So why I say this is, if we were to hit an obstacle climbing the internal systems, while campaigning is great, the discursive impact it has is numbers, right? It shows to the internal people that may be cut off from student-facing, I guess, places, that this is something that is demanded and wanted by student demographics. So having signatures, having numbers very much pushes forward that cause and shows to the people in charge that there is a need, and that need is incredibly tangible, and that need is felt by students here on the ground. So that is very much the benefits of that, and something that should be looked out for. What to campaign on? So here are some general guides. It is not the criteria, but a general guide. Is it widely felt? So do students care? Can you make them care? Are students motivated to create change? Is it winnable? Is it something that the SRC can change? Is it within our remit to do so? Waste of resources, not so much that, that's a bit too harshly worded. Or, you know, is it something that the SRC can, even if it's not within our remit, is it something that we can support? Is there other place or another avenue that can actually follow these methods with the SRC support? So that could also be part of preserving our own battery. So if there is capacity for another avenue or branch outside of the SRC to do something, and they have the capacity to do so, that's absolutely great. Get them to do that so you don't run yourself thin, and just oversee that process and ensure that it is fair. Does it build on the SRC or the collective's power? So looking long term, yes. So what's this one? Oh yeah, that's right. So is there something that needs some greater reform or a approval within the SRC process? Can it be fleshed out? Is this something that needs to be done over a longer period of time of campaigning? Because sometimes it is. If like Joel said prior, the university internal systems and steam engines are so slow. So we may, in the process of getting change, have to slow down that fight in the fact that it's not that we're delaying the solution, it's just that that is the only way the core solution will follow, no matter how hard we advocate, no matter how hard we push. So it's just about preserving the SRC power. Do you have a theory of change or an idea of what winning looks like? So again, talking about what I said prior about setting tangible outcomes. What are the tangible outcomes? What are the explicit tangible needs and wants that we want to get out of the university or whoever we're campaigning? Yep. So yeah, what do you want changes? What changes can you get? And also, does that fall within the remit of the university, or is it a greater government issue? Does it fall onto then the legislation controlling universities? So then, should we have to be lobbying to government? And this is a greater bit that I'd love for your engagement on. What is or something we should be campaigning on within that remit, within that criteria? I'd love to hear your views. What is something we should be campaigning on? Again, Dia will be talking about whatever it is, the specific greater campaigns of the SRC further, but I'd love to hear what your views on what a campaign should be, what falls within that remit. Yeah, Conrad? Ending trimesters. That does fall within the remit of the SRC. So ending trimesters. Now, speaking greater to that, Conroy, then, ending trimesters, while that's well and good, should we then, and I've seen this because I've sat in on these conversations as president, supplement it with a system that's just as harmful and annoying? No. So part of those tangible outcomes is what we need when we end trimesters. We're ending trimesters for what? We want semesters. Is there a more favorable outcome than semesters? You want semester? If someone put me through one long semester with no breaks, I would lose it and I'd go insane. I did not spell that right. No one judge me. You're fired. Why is this not working?
That's it now. It's a new system.
It's, oh my God, it's Summers. This is so chaotic. Oh, done it. Is that close enough? How do I spell semesters? I rely too much on autocorrect. Okay, lovely. I rely too much on autocorrect, if you couldn't tell. And yeah, a part of that is, yeah, ending trimesters for semesters. And then, of course, it has to ensure that there is a student need and want for it. I think we know that there's definitely a student need for want for it, but ensuring that in our campaign, it's representative of those numbers. It needs to be a number big enough to show that there is dissatisfaction. in that current system, and that there is a hunger for a specific system. So, because of course they can always turn it around and say, you don't want trimesters? That's okay. Let's introduce, I don't know, ocmesters, right? So, which sounds like hell. So being able to clearly and explicitly identify why we don't want this system. What is the shortcoming with trimesters? Why are those shortcomings then addressed with semesters? Clearly outlining that, right? Because if we don't, it may fall back on us. What I mean by that is it may end up in a result that is inequitable or not equitable enough for the outcome that we wanted. So having those clearly and explicitly listed outcomes. So what is the benefit that we get from semesters? I'm just running with that. Why semesters over trimesters? Is there any other amendments that we can make to a semester system that makes it better? Yeah.
First reason is it's a lot better for staff for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Looking externally and looking to our previous history, our staff and students still burnt out and still face issues within the semester system? Not as badly, but they still do, right? We can also look for further amendments to make a more equitable system, right? Why stop there, right? That's why I'm trying to encourage looking at. So when we're proposing something, reviewing with looking outwards at what the student needs are, right? Looking elsewhere or looking even internally. What are the barriers that students are facing? Can that be faced by a semester system, or is there additional supports and amendments and adjustments that are needed, right? So like that. Can anyone think of something else that can be campaigned on within the remit of that kind of framework prior? Yeah.
We have a problem with a complete lack of gender neutral bathrooms, for example. I believe we have, was it 3?
So even that's currently listed on the website.
Yeah,
So
3,
official ones.
including one that's locked away in the chancellor is not accessible to students, which is funny.
More than any other GA university. Yes.
Yeah, so
And counted all of them, by the way, so.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna advertise the uni as a queer friendly space and put our big lion along the side and tee up in, maybe we should back that up with actual policy.
Yeah, and I love that as well. But again, accounting for the university's response, akin to the period product campaign, we need period products in bathrooms. Great, we'll do 5, right?
Yeah.
And very, very, very similar to the situation actually prior when we had advocates for gender neutral bathrooms. Great, we'll do 3,
Yeah.
right? How many do we need? What do we have to back this up? Is there a large student demand? Is there is to ensure that it is accessible across campus? So attaching further demands to it. Gender neutral bathrooms that are accessible to all students across all sections of campus. And wheelchair accessible and et cetera, right? Just as an example. So remembering that when we are campaigning for something, we need to have tangible outcomes. And what I mean by that is, if we're campaigning for gender neutral bathrooms, part of those tangible outcomes is that, right? Because while we've attained gender neutral bathrooms, they're just 3, right? So that's why we need to attach those tangible outcomes. Those are just in general guidance points as well, but it also makes it extra specific for the university so there are less workarounds. And we framework then. Okay, past failures and future learnings from previous SRC and current. All the fun stuff. So from here and the general experience of even myself, it's an SRC, because of all the gray area and this work we do, it is incredibly overwhelming, right? So that's why it's best to get started ASAP. Understanding your goals and ambitions now, discussing them now, thinking about them now, and signing on ASAP on the 1st of December, right? Getting your collectives engaged, getting your social media engaged, getting your students engaged, finding their needs, but also allowing yourself time to scroll through the previous officers' emails. Are there anything that they've missed? Are there any issues and needs that have been identified by students? Have there been students that have reached out that need help that hasn't been answered to? So that's why it's good to get on board now, address the current needs as is. Are they systemic? Are they individual? Learning. So set up campaign committees if it's deemed to be a significant cross-council campaign. Also schedule these meetings at a time that works for council. Learning from that. So yeah, if you're having a campaign, it's really good to get the SRC involved. Again, the SRC meetings shouldn't just have that shouldn't be our only opportunity to congregate and create change and discuss change. If you have a specific campaign and if you take it to an SRC meeting as a matter for noting, and there have been a few people that want to get involved after seeing that matter for noting, that's great. Set up then an individual meeting, discuss a time that's accessible, have room and adequate space to discuss change and timelines there, right? And that also ensures that there are enough people to support you in achieving that end. Yep, frame the issues in a way that students will understand and care about. Assume that people may need incentive and are time poor. So this is of course, this is a general expectation, especially in our current climate. I say this as a previous Students with Disabilities officer, that there are a lot of barriers to participating in the campaigning system because the university system as this is exhausting, the society system is exhausting. So there may need to be additional incentives to engage or accommodations, right? That could either be just participating in a virtual campaign, a digital campaign, participating in a survey, participating in a signature, finding some way to get them involved, or possibly deriving incentives. So for those that may need it, $1 or $5 free food, something like that. Because unfortunately, students are resource and time poor. Again, that's not always the case, but it is affecting a lot of more and more demographics as the months go on. Okay. What I've found is starting with protests is great. It can also be used as a leverage power. The last thing universities want is to be made looking bad. Is that a word? Is that grammatically correct? They don't want to look bad. Leveraging campaigns is a great way of getting them to move a bit faster, right? And also is a great way to ensure that we're exhausting our boundaries and that when we hit a roadblock, there are other avenues to exhaust. And it's difficult to threaten to take this issue to the media to derive movement if you've already done that. And now they just are angry and don't want to do nothing with you or want nothing to do with you. So that is some advice. Dia as well has her own way of running things that fall within the remit of SRC and fall within its boundaries and are perfectly appropriate as well. So she'll be bringing up her spin on these things. But yeah, most importantly is that focus on an issue, delegate an appropriate amount of time to work within it. Account for your boundaries, account for your shortcomings. Remember you're human and deserve time to yourself to breathe, for your own mental health, for your family, everything like that. And I think some general bits to navigating and dealing with the UNSW system is finding some people that will help advocate with you, right? People power is what's so needed. So finding the right people internally and externally that will advocate for your cause. If you have external and internal staff and external students advocating for the cause, that gives it all the more levity and strength. So don't be afraid to exhaust the internal structures as well. While you're representing student needs, having staff backing is incredibly helpful because that all the more legitimizes the cause. And one thing as well that I'd like to also speak to that's not really on these slides is engaging with students. You are a student-facing service, and what a lot of these trainings don't prepare you for, especially in my personal experience, is when a student comes to you distressed, they've experienced something quite egregious. It makes you annoyed, it makes you frustrated. But we are students too. I'm gonna swear, how the fuck do we do this, right? when a student comes to you with almost an issue that's bordering on human rights abuse, well, first of all, you can support them in making a report to CIO if you deem it appropriate. Support them in making a report to the police. Now, again, that is not your sole responsibility. If you do not feel comfortable with it, they are, and I'll direct you to the resources. There are GB and SV, as well as mental health first responders on campus. We have explicit, and they have their numbers detailed as well. So if you search up GB and SV first responders on campus, there is a list of people with names, photos, numbers. You contact them, and you can have them support you through that process. You can also function as a support person. And what a support person is and is not, a support person is a person that supports in communicating the individual's grievances, right? You're not speaking on behalf of, you're not speaking for, you're helping them articulate it. If the process is re-traumatizing, or if what they're experiencing is so difficult to articulate in a way that the university understands, right? Your job is to not take the issue and run away with it without the person's consent and without the person's request, right? That's not what support is. That's not what the SRC advocacy is. It's about raising their voice with them. What you can do within these systems in making complaints is you put forward the complaint. You can do one of two things. So you can support them in activating ARC Legal and advocacy to support the oversight of this, and as well in your official officer remit as officers, follow up with whatever complaints process and pathways exist in ensuring a fair and tangible outcome, right? Another aspect as well is, what if the individual wants to go anonymous? That's absolutely fair. That's and is dependent on the person's discretion. I fully and strongly recommend that you speak with your SRC president and with your general secretary, and they can be a potential point of contact, but that is solely dependent on the needs of the individual. You go through this in greater detail with your GV training, and in response to those things, to build up your capacity as an advocate. But I'm just speaking to that now in letting you know that that is quite transferable in many different contexts, especially when it comes in regards to ableism, racism, and many other, I guess, spaces for abuse. I'd like you all as well to keep an eye out on your emails as well. Thankfully, for the first time in ever, the National Association of Advocates have released guidelines as to advocacy processes. I believe this will be quite helpful in filling some of the further grey lines, especially when dealing with individuals. While we are systemic advocates and fighting for change, that doesn't negate the fact that there are very limited pathways for students to have individual advocacy reached, right? I'm sure Students with Disabilities Officer, and I know that in my capacity is that there are many individual issues, right? So just a reminder that you may need to advocate for individual circumstances, and I will not leave you in the dark. I'll provide some guidelines that identify the clear area for that. And if you, again, have any, if a person comes to you quite distressed in these states, contact SRC president, contact ARC Legal, contact the first responders, ensure that you support them in the complaints process. Okay, lovely. Do we have any questions online or in person in regards to anything mentioned? No? Okay. Lovely. Okay, now we'll move on to, we're doing pretty good for time. The final bit, which is the SRC vision. I'll get Dia to come up and do that thing. Sure, of course we can.
Could I just say something real quick? Dia or Michael or whoever, would you guys mind just sharing the slides? Dia.
I'm living up to my promise
Yeah,
to be the earliest SRC president.
Happy to as well. I'll definitely do that by the end of this week, and I'll attach some other guidelines for individual advocacy. I very much also would place that as required reading. And very much strongly recommend it. I'll let
No,
you-
no. Also, no, I just meant also like now, so I can see them
Oh,
as like the actual
can't-
slides, not just on the camera. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, can you not see anything?
No, no, no. I can see it from the camera, but like if you could just share the screen.
Oh my God.
Does that make
I thought I was
sense?
sharing screen this whole time.
No, no, no. You're fine. You're fine.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, like I could see it. I was just like on the camera, if that makes sense.
Give me 1 second. My laptop's having a panic attack.
You're all good. Don't stress. I could still see and understand.
Want to do slides or?
Yeah, just.
Oh my God. Okay, perfect. That's amazing. I have a now very clear image of Dia on my screen.
Yeah,
Lovely.
yeah, welcome to the SRC opening address, the 2025 minutes. For context of that photo, that was me my first week at SRC because I sent an email to ARC about wanting to do something and they were like, no. And I was like, there goes all my plans for the next 6 months. And then I went back to Michael and Pepsi, who was such a big support system to me at the time, and cried and sent them that photo, and that things actually ended up getting done because sometimes you need to go through things through 20 different hurdles to actually get them done because I'm a firm believer that the SRC is set in a way to make it as inefficient as possible. You know, you need to jump through 20 hurdles to do something. Somebody says no, and then you try and do something grassroots, and then the uni goes, actually, we're going to enforce a penalty on you for doing your job. So because of that, I'm going to give you some things that were not in the official address that happen in practice instead of in theory, in my experience. So this is the not so nice version, I guess. So to start off, slides.
I'm there. It's just
Okay.
a 5-second delay.
Oh, good. You guys want to press play somewhere?
Oh, slideshow?
Yes. Yes, it is cool, guys. That's why we're here. We did so much cool stuff. We did the Period Products Pilot Campaign. The SGM had historic turnout. We had the Queer Bowl. We consulted on a bunch of different policies. We gave DEI grants. We fought for different activist rights. We also have different grassroots ideas like anti-scamming guides. So things that us as students noticed were an issue, and we worked together to do them in all these different avenues. Like Michael said, there's 2 different approaches, and both of those approaches have had great success this year. I think that we can count last year as a win for so many different things that we all set out to do. But yeah, here are some things in practice. Apologies. Fill in your review reports, please, because when we know what each other are doing, we can, one, help each other, we can hold each other accountable. We cannot say, hey, so-and-so hasn't done anything if we don't know where so-and-so has been. And if you're unable to attend, submit your apologies with the OB report, or I will not accept them because I can, according to charter, just because you're doing stuff for the last month. If you're unable to come to the meeting, that's completely fine, that's completely reasonable. There's reasons that you're not able to come in. Even if you're proxying, just have a, hey, this is what I'm working on. Especially because that will tell me how I can support you guys. But yeah, please use the official channel. None of this messaging Paige privately in 2025.
Oh yeah, no, that's not allowed.
Do not message Paige Sedgwick. She is not here. Next slide. Email your president, not the uni or ARC. Like I said, learn from my mental health struggles. It is my job actually to know the ladder that Michael said. It is not your job to know. You do not have to know where to go. You will not know where to go, and you will start crying looking for the right place to go. That's not my job, and therefore come to me if you guys need to reach any upper management, but also if the uni has reached you through upper management and has done something and said, hey, stop doing this thing. My job to fight them, not yours, can be yours, but it would be more effective if it's mine because, next slide.
Collectively.
I can do things to protect you. Yippee. Approve ARC budgets, take things to ARC boards, academic board. Make submissions to amend policies, public statements, etc., etc. My point is, I have access to a lot of things that you will probably need access to, and I'm kind of your conduit for that. If you need access to any of these things, I'm the person to do that. Next slide. B. You will probably end up in a debate at some point in SRC. That's just kind of how things work. But yeah, keep things respectful, speak to the motion specifically, not to the person. And we're all on the same team at the end of the day. We're all working together to make student life better. And as soon as we get past all of the debates on the motion, That's what we're all here for. That's what we're all doing. I know we do mental health checks. Please put yourself first. SRC is really stressful, and so make sure you look out for yourself.
Can I actually add to something as well?
Oh yeah.
There's also another pathway. Should you not want a mental health check from DIA, that's okay. Because as well as president, she can also file for mental health check-ins from UNSW's Mental Health Connect, who are of course accredited counselors and therapists, in case you need that. Yep.
Okay. More things for next year. Optional meetings. When we're working on projects like, let's say, OE, for example, is coming up, I don't expect people to be there making submissions to things to, matters to decision for what we're going to do at OE. We're just going to have meetings where we all do parts of that. You don't have to come. If you would like to work on things, I will be posting out links saying, hey guys, we're having a meeting at this time. You're welcome to join. We will be working on this. And you can join. You can opt in because when we work together, we get more stuff done. Okay, the media policy. This is my biggest passion, if people know my joke or origin story. So according to the media policy, the president has to grant you permission to just talk to media about SRC. I give you all permission. Email me for a paper trail if anyone follows you up and say that you have breached our media policy, because I think that speaking to the media about what the SRC is doing is really important, and it helps build that network with students. It helps build our transparency. I think it's been one of the issues that we've had in the past. Just because we have all of these hurdles in place to communicate with students. Okay, so current issues. The SRC is inaccessible, untransparent, and unaccountable. What does that mean? It means that the everyday person does not interact with SRC as much as they did previous year. It's untransparent in fact that there is not open dialogue with students the way that there should be, mainly through the media. And lastly, it is unaccountable because we've had years where we've had entire OBs just go the entire year, never showed up to an SRC meeting, and nothing's happened because of that, and they just collected their pay. We need to fix this. So the ways that we fix this are by boosting engagement, transparency, and that's what we will be working on throughout a lot of our initiatives next year. Next. So here's some of my broad plans, but the big thing is OBs, your job is to represent your demographic, obviously. So your plans will take priority over my plans for any of those things. For example, ethnocultural officer is your job to be in charge of ethnocultural issues. No one's mine. And figuring out what to do with that, but also big things like, I think we should be fighting with 2 bullshit to sit. Everyone's kind of agreed on that. And short extensions and things like that. That we will be looking into, same with peer parts and gender violence. That's a women's officer issue. But yeah, want to continue. Oh yeah, the last thing I just want to quickly note is short loans and grants is something that almost every other community student union has that we don't. But for that, we would require smart budgeting, which I would be working on.
Question.
Let's say grants, because I'm unable to press the letter T, I guess.
Question.
Yes.
What's BDS?
Boycott, divest, and
Ah,
sanction.
right.
Which I think should be a priority for us when it comes to technical issues. Next slide. Okay, my job is to help you do your job. So for that, you need to A, know what you want to do for your job, and B, how I can help you is up to me in terms of, I can say, okay, this is what you're working on, this is how I will help you. My job is to support you. So whatever you want to do, I am here to not pass judgment on what your job is. It's your job to have judgment on what your job is, and it's my job to help you do that. And that's it.
Yeah, that's it. Lovely. Did you want to speak to, so those are the general plans for this year?
Oh, yes, plans this year.
This is that
Yeah,
this
I
year?
know the live, I'm just trying to some dot points. I can go over them. Just in general, we should be focusing on making it successful, advocating for minorities, and having a greater social impact on the world. But I think that's kind of like the cornerstones of SRC.
Yeah.
Those are just some of the ideas that I came up with. But I'm sure that everyone else has ideas that will kind of work in conjunction with this.
Well, in the spirit of that, then let's push on there. So, yep. All right. If so, generally, what I mean by us is Akash and Dia. If you want to achieve your goals, and if you have a general outcome that you want to pursue, speak to them, right? They can, and as disabilities officers prior to me being president, it was so incredibly helpful to actually brief the president about an idea or campaign I had because they would be able to tell me, oh, that's a lot of money. Go to EDI grants, you'll get enough funding. Oh, they're taking too long. Let's escalate that using this pathway, right? It is so incredibly helpful, especially when you're trying to meet deadlines, especially when you don't know who to start talking to, really. And yeah, we want to empower you to achieve those plans and goals. So of course, reach out. We can connect you with the right people. So yada, 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 like I was saying. Good to know I'm following a mental trail. All right, so in the spirit of that, Dina, do you want to lead this bit here? Yeah. Oh, yours. In the spirit of that, this is very much your time to shine. And yeah, I hand the mic over.
Oh, this is.
Oh, this is not.
This is
doesn't
not-
work. So I'll just be a scribe.
Is this the breakout groups bit?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, then,
Do you want me to just?
is that later?
No, it's now.
Oh, okay, so you are.
Yep.
Okay, I guess to talk to the people next to you. That's kind of the groups, table groups. If you want to join the other end of the table, just so you're not alone, because I am always the person that sits at the other end and then has to awkwardly find where to go. So that's where you go now.
Groups of how many people do we have?
22 groups, 2 to 3.
Yeah, groups of 3.
Easy. So yeah, what do we believe students need? And just like broadly, think of literally everything, and then figure out if it falls within the SRC or not is a follow-up question. But yeah.
Lovely. You go do that as well. I'll be the keeper. Yeah, so you guys were just discussing those 2 points here. That's a great idea.
So there's just,
Oh, that's one person online. That's right. Forgot about the person online. Sorry.
Yeah, hi.
I'll talk with you. Don't worry. We'll have a chat.
No, you're so fine.
Sorry.
I just saw this.
Yeah, we're gonna do that. We're gonna do groups.
And then.
Yeah, let me talk to you. Like, so we're gonna do this one second, right?
I just, I tell you, right?
We'll come back together. Where is it?
I've got a briefing at council. Oh,
Hey guys, a little bit of a point of preference. If you, I recommend going into groups of people you're not too familiar with, or going into people that aren't within your faction, because I believe that you need to have some collaborative discussions, and also open some people up to some encountering different views that you're going to be experiencing with your team at the SRC. So, I will be speaking with that one person online. I don't want to abandon her.
Hi.
Give me a sec.
No, you're right.
So this, yeah, like, what do you think it should be? And
I think we're just breaking groups now, I guess.
I guess the community was just something like, all of my folks. So I just want to tie people in.
Yeah.
Yes, it's one way for flagging. Yeah, it's one of those things where it can build our foundation and without so it was strong. I think one of the things about
Hey, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
I sure can.
Am I going through the giant speakers or?
No, you're not. It's just you and I.
Okay, fantastic. I can even put my camera on.
Can you still see the screen?
I can.
Perfect. Okay, so tell me about what you believe students need.
I mean, kind of a big question, isn't it?
It is. So that's why it's open for a group discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess the first things that come to mind are the things that are relevant to my like OB position. So
Yeah.
the stuff relating to women. So in terms of like I guess greater or better more improved reporting and accessibility for sexual assault on campus, things like that. Also expanding the period products campaign. So they're like the things I'll chat about later with the little presentation-y thing anyway. But like aside from that, I guess in terms of what students need, I suppose more kind of, I don't know, more support, I'd say, in terms of academics, like something that has come up before, obviously, is like the whole fit to sit and like short extension stuff. So I definitely think those are two big things as well that I think. And I feel like it does fall under SRC, like because well, I mean, I'm obviously new to all of this, so I don't know technically how much power we have. But
Well, we have the power to campaign and demand. That's the power that we have.
exactly. We have the power of the students to like bring those demands to the board or whatever. So yeah, I guess those are probably like the big things that I can think of now. Obviously, there's probably heaps more, but I don't know. Other things, what have I missed?
Can you talk to me? I'd love to hear more about your sort of reporting pathways.
Say that again, sorry.
You said something about the reporting pathways.
Oh, yeah. So, do you know Angela Griffin?
Of course I do. She's a superstar.
She's an absolute superstar. So she's doing her PhD right now on like gendered violence in unis and stuff. And so she works for the Gendered Violence Network and stuff like that. So Pepsi, who I'm obviously you also know, is going to get me in touch with her to kind of do a bit of like work and chatting about how we can kind of improve all of those avenues at UNSW because of her kind of expertise and knowledge. I obviously don't know too much about the intricacies and interworkings of how that all works. So she'll kind of be my, I guess, go-to or like information about how that'll all work. And the idea is to get her guidance on how it's going to be best to implement all of that and what the SRC can do in order to improve those like reporting and basically like just a commission into sexual assault on campus and gendered violence. Oh yeah,
I love that.
that's a plan anyway.
I'm not sure. I doubt that you probably saw the SRC's return to the DV policy, but
Yeah.
the submission that we made. But I'm fully in support of that. What I've seen and what I've spoken to about in regards to spoke to a lot of people is that we need GB and SV responses that are intersectional because so many student policy government, so many university policies only address GB and SVs in their standalone ways that are incredibly clear cut and non-grey and non-intersecting, and they fail to note as well the unique ways that they present for people of different races and
100%.
yeah, and as well as disability and grey areas surrounding that as well, especially in non-verbal communication and
Absolutely.
and the LGBTQI community and the complexities there as well.
Yeah, and I think it's obviously so important to have that intersectional lens when, I guess, viewing all of these stuff, because obviously it's like I'm the women's portfolio, but also there are Black women, there are queer women, there are like non-binary people, there are women with disabilities. All of those portfolios intersect, I guess. So it's important to acknowledge that and I guess address that as well.
100%, and I think that gives you that capacity for that collaborative, that collaborative response building and reform.
Sorry, it's very hard to hear you with all the background now noise. So
It's
sorry.
hard to think. No, but it's okay. Is this any better?
Sorry.
Is this any better?
Slightly maybe.
What if I get a bit closer?
I think that might be better. Low key.
Much better. Lovely, lovely. My face is touching the screen.
Amazing.
But, yeah, I very much in for that. I wanted to speak to the draft gender violence policy. You had the opportunity to look at it.
Sorry. Say that one more time.
No worries. The draft gender violence policy. Have you looked at that?
The draft of the what?
Gender violence policy. UNSW
Oh, yeah.
gender violence.
I
Yeah.
think Pepsi sent that through to me, or there was a report. I read the oh fuck, what was it? It was some report that Pepsi sent me, and I like read through that, and that was like a while ago. So I need to go back with more of like a fine tooth comb and figure out all that. Is that maybe what you're talking about there?
Yeah, it could be. They may have sent you our report, the SRC report in response to that, but I can tell you for certain that there was absolutely no discussion about any intersecting experiences whatsoever at all.
Nope.
Nope. The word disability wasn't even mentioned. I think LGBTQ was mentioned once or twice.
That's actually cooked. What the hell?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think the race wasn't touched on either.
No.
So,
Yeah.
very much like there's an absence of that going, and going forward, I think because SSC has the capacity to advocate for that change, and also sit on we're on the board for gender violence. Our women's officer currently sits on our current women's officer. Mandy.
Imandi, yeah.
Has she done a handover with you yet?
No, not yet. I haven't met her, but I know of her, and yes, but I'm yet to meet her, so I'm excited to kind of chat to her about like how she went this year and all the stuff that if she has any suggestions or whatever, all that kind of stuff.
Lovely, perfect. Yeah, really recommend that. Yeah, so the women's officer settled the gender violence prior. I was there when it was made, and I very much feel up being a tick box mechanism. So very much.
Someone's randomly in the lobby.
Oh, give me 1 second.
Should we admit them? That's so random. Well, it says for me. What the heck? Like I've got an. Yeah. there we go.
Hey, Cora. Hey, Cora, how you going? Can you hear me?
Cora, are you there?
Hey. Okay. Okay, well, moving from there, so yeah, sitting as to whether they fall within the remit of the SRC. So I definitely think that. So talking to the reporting mechanisms,
Yeah.
I'd say SRC definitely has a role in raising awareness about the issue, making sure that that's known amongst the current UNSW legislators and students. And we definitely have capacity to consult and provide recommendations and advocate for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's within that capacity. We don't have, unfortunately, don't have capacity to change policies, but we have capacity to advocate for policy change.
Yeah.
Period products, 100%. We put within that remit of, again, advocating state management to.
And expanding it as well to like not just 5 bathrooms or whatever. I think it's 10 bathrooms permanently, but most of them are always empty. Even though I like scan the little QR code saying to refill. But like expanding that into gender neutral bathrooms, male bathrooms, like just every bathroom should have some access to it.
I love that. That's great. Fully agree.
Yeah.
Fully agree.
Cool.
Yeah, 100% fully agree. So, let me write that down. Yeah. And yeah, we have the capacity there to do two things.
Yeah.
To A, of course, lobby for change, but also B, part of it is getting student input and engagement. If we continue to have signatures and numbers on, and people utilizing that QR code and essentially like putting forward that demand in numbers, that legitimize our pursuit for advocacy. So,
Mhm.
am I saying that loud? Am I being coherent?
I'm like, no, like I'm getting snippets. You're good. You're good.
Lovely. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that very much fits within the short extension in 56. I think what
Yeah,
we need
yeah.
to very much identify to the university, especially, is how little schools and courses are actually implementing short extensions. I don't think I can name a single person studying law that can actually file for a short extension.
Wait, what was that? What'd you say?
I don't think I can name a single law course where you can
Yeah.
file for a short extension.
Yeah, what?
So while we have that, we need to get, our job is getting, like, with our Deputy Vice Chancellor of Education aware of the situation and lobbying for different schools and making
Yeah, exactly.
mandatory and not optional.
100%.
Unfortunately, it is optional.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Actually, I have thought of another thing that has come up before is like it's Food Hub as well. So I guess like supporting and expanding that to have like a permanent home, a bigger, better home, more volunteers, more resources, all of that, because number one thing that students need is probably food. Like, that's probably like a big thing. And obviously when it comes to exams and stuff, or like people are working less, or so can't make enough money, all that kind of stuff. And like the line at Food Hub, I went to it a few weeks ago, and I was in there for like nearly an hour. So just kind of, I guess, improving the efficiency and speaking to Food Hub and seeing what they need and seeing what the SRC can do. So I don't know exactly how much we can do for them, but I assume like there's obviously stuff that we could do. So I think, working with Food Hub as well.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And I think, well, I'll let you know this. So Food Hub sits in
Is it
ARC.
Arc?
Yeah, it sits in ARC. And as SRC president, the SRC, through the SRC president, the SRC has the capacity to put forward motions to the ARC board in regards to amendments to Food Hub.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but first, of course, we need to have that collaborative conversation with Food Hub.
See what they actually need. Don't just make the decisions for them.
Exactly, 100%. Do it collaboratively. And see if there's anything as well that SRC can do, whether that be donating some, like welfare collective donating money to Food Hub to help.
Totally. Yeah, like a fundraiser or something.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Cool. Love it. I think that's everything.
See how we're going.
Yeah, do.
Hey, gang. How are we going? Do we need 10 more minutes, 5 more minutes? Good to go. Yeah, lovely. Let's bring this back to a collective discussion. What do we discuss? Yeah.
We were discussing the uni health services and psychology services. So having access to health services and to that point, mental health services, that's pretty good. And also general cost of living relief, making sure that they can afford basic necessities.
Yep. How so? Can you expand on that?
So things like Food Hub is a great start of, making groceries accessible to students, and an SRC initiative that falls within the scope of SRC. But looking at broader things like the cost of things just going down would pretty much help, having caps on rents, fighting gentrification, all that kind of stuff. Which, do they fall into the SRC?
Mm.
Very question. But can they be fought for through the SRC?
Mm. Yeah, and as well, I know you were speaking to grants as well to
Yes.
help combat that for students in dire need.
And also emergency housing, but that would also be very helpful for a lot of people at the time. And I think especially cost of living, one of the big things with the emergency housing services that we have is that people don't know that they exist here.
Yeah.
And so, like, I know a lot of people who, for legal reasons, have definitely not slept on campus anywhere because that estate management would not like that. However, people
Yes.
who, don't know where to go to, and kind of have to figure this out, quite literally have emergency housing that we just do not say anywhere.
Yeah, no, and I've definitely not.
Yeah, there's 3 beds.
Yeah, exactly. And they've been cut as well. By,
Really?
yeah, there was 6 prior to me becoming president.
Okay. And they cut 3 during cost of living crisis.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I've totally
Do
not.
what with it?
I've totally not. Oh, so,
Give them back to the
yeah,
colleges.
yeah, bring them back to colleges. I know Conroy. I know. And I've definitely not told anyone that the safe spaces are lockable after 6. So if you enter them, you can stay in them after 6. I've definitely not told anyone that at all. By the way. Okay, so yep, food hub and resourcing, caps on rent, grants, emergency housing. Food hub. What was the discussions on food hub? I know we actually had online. We had some discussions on that. On food.
That's like food hub is a permanent home. That's kind of something that I think everyone in SRC agrees with. It's like one of our most essential services that reaches a lot of our goals for delivering back to student life, but it's one of those that is on like a contract every term, every trimester, or every 3 months or something like that.
3 months sounds about right.
Yeah, where they need to get it reviewed, and so because of that mission, prices one of those commercial venues.
Yes.
For like 10 years or something ridiculous like that. But also, in general, it's one of those things about giving back to the community and alleviating a lot of the burden of the cost of living and not expecting anything from the students in return.
And part of that could even possibly be as well fundraising, potentially for greater resourcing. Because from the online team, we heard that it can even be, you can wait as long as an hour to access those resources. So greater financing as well. So fundraising. So that would fall here, fundraising. And here, especially because Food Hub is operated by ARC. ARC would love a permanent home for that. So that would be a SRC ARC collaboration, and that would help as well take the pressure off SRC, but still while we campaign for it, but it'll be very helpful, and ARC can also provide their resources. So collaboration. And Food Hub. And also possibly just having a meeting with Food Hub and understanding as well what are the other impediments to their existing and flourishing.
And hopefully, if expanding Food Hub to not just be Food Hub, but having other resources that are available to students with nothing in exchange, but the fact that a surplus of the resource already exists. So things like secondhand textbooks. People have been trying to get rid of textbooks forever. They sell them for pretty cheap because they're the old print or whatever. But if somebody really needs one, you can pick something up like that, or clothing, or kitchen utensils.
Yep. And let me actually point you in the direction of a service before we get there. And it's so difficult. Like the first part of my presidency was identifying all of the services I could find under each SRC collective page. So if you go to your SRC, each collective, down there is find your supports. One of them being, which I've discovered, is if you go to the quad, second level of the quad, far left side is a resource room where it has books, where it has pens, staples, really all of your classroom needs and amenities.
Is this the secondhand stationery?
Yep.
Okay.
So that's where the secondhand stationery place has a lot of those things. Unfortunately, not a lot of people know about it, and it's one tiny door that's that big. So yeah, part of that can be raising awareness about those supports. But you're right, there is not a place where a person can get detergent, which is alarmingly expensive, and cooked meals, like a movement that we passed at our previous SRC meeting, the need for hot meals. Yeah, lovely. Your hand was raised.
Yeah, I mean, I know about the food hub, like, as someone who hasn't used it before, they do sometimes have the facilities to provide cooked meals. That is something they sometimes provide when they have it. I imagine that's based on what they actually receive from their sources. They also have like a little like clothes rack and stuff like that. Like it's clear that they want to be able to deliver these resources, but it's like the clothes are on like a really dodgy Kmart rack sitting outside because it's clear they just don't have the resources to be able to properly deliver this. And if it doesn't look like a proper delivery of this, people are less likely to want to use it because they don't want to take from something that looks like it's barely holding together.
Yeah.
If it's something that people feel welcome to go into and check out, it's immediately something they can do.
Yeah, make it more warm. Yeah.
And also like building on the idea of clothes, especially in terms of like, you know, taking secondhand clothes. It's also give what you can. So for example, I have bags and bags of clothes that need to go to the donation because I need it.
Same.
So maybe more next year. But because of that, you know, there's nowhere on campus I can do that. I need to actively like make a deal out of being like, okay, today I'm going to go and actively get rid of all these bags of clothes. Whereas I'm sure a bunch of students would be like, hey, I have a bag of clothes to get rid of, let me drop them off on my way to class if they knew where it was. So places to get rid of what you can so that somebody who can benefit from it can have it is just as important as resources that, you know, we can take if we need. Somewhere we can give if we can.
Yeah.
We already know that that's the thing, like, within the Quick Collective,
Yeah.
Alice has done a lot of this, within the Quick Collective, like, we currently have a, focus on, in Quick Collective. We have a lot more donations coming in than people take, so, like, people very much would like to give if they can, and it's great that, like, people can take what they need, especially if they can't, like, buy the clothes that they would like to wear, buy themselves, or just, like, comfortable, that sort of thing.
Thank you. And as an FYI for those that are running the spaces, especially Disability Collective and Welfare Collective, for those that are running the spaces, what we have done traditionally and what we should keep on the tradition of doing is stocking it with free period products, stocking it with free amenities like soap, like dishwasher, like toothpaste, like we've continued to do, free clothes like we continue to do, and a couple of other amenities. So that is your job to continually monthly restock it. That's your job. Please stick to it because of course it is something you need, and blankets. Sorry.
It's timely, right? It's every trimester.
I do it. I ask them to do it monthly.
Yeah,
We start with the budget.
yeah.
Yes, using the budget for the spaces.
You should get earplugs in there too.
Agreed. So there is budget for every office that has a space. There's budget for the spaces. Yes, there's a spaces budget. So you
Spaces budget is like 100 per trimester. So unless you can like ration that through the month, it's 100 per trimester. And I know this guy, because of that, it's really difficult to be able to do that every month. It's kind of easier to do a big restock at the end of the trimester. And then it's, I mean, it's both equally like, oh, yay, people, you know, are benefiting from this, but also a bit sad that within the first few weeks you go back there and everything already do something.
additional to this as well, though, and to find a way around that, sadly as it is, very right about EDI grants. EDI grants, escalating it through to Bruce, the head of EDI, they would be very happy to support things like that. So there are, when you know the right people, knowing who's who, there are workarounds to those issues. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I think a food hub thing, I mean, that's one to watch because like every year they struggle to re-get their like space or whatever.
Yeah,
So I really like trying to get it somewhere permanent, but I think also just like you could run a good campaign if the food hub were attacked and it wasn't going to get its space back again because lots of people obviously use it and it's like so that's like good. But I think one thing to say is that like on all of these issues, and there are big things coming, like the international student caps have led to lots of staff cuts and course cuts, and a bunch of unions like AMU and Wollongong around the country. But just on any of it is like, obviously the president has access to a bunch of meetings where all of this stuff is discussed. And so all of it, any information on any of these things that like, you know, like we think the SRC should do something about has to be shared with the whole SRC as well, which is the thing of like transparency, because there have been like presidents in the past, like course cuts have gone through, who have deliberately like withheld it from the SRC and simply by like journalists. But yeah, just like in saying that, like we should just be all collaborative on these issues, but that just does mean actually getting
Access to the issues to collaborate.
Yeah.
I mean, that will be one of my reasons, for sure, as president. I'm very pro, not gatekeeping it firm. But yeah, and also that goes two ways in the sense of if you guys need anything to be escalated to taking things like academic or like those like inter-uni meetings, I will contribute to do so. So therefore, you know, if you need anything, that's where you go.
Lovely. Do we have any other actions spoken to? What do we believe students need? I know there was, from the loudness of this crowd, I know there was much more topics to discuss.
Yeah, well, I guess it's just connected to what I said. It was like I feel like applying the quality education, I guess, amid these national student caps and the reaction that already seems to be happening at quite a few campuses, like because of them, like would be an important project this year. I feel like it's pretty linked up as well to like the other campaigns, like against like attacks on education, like you know, like against the trimester system as well that the SRC has in the past been a part of, and like you know, lots of people here want to be part of this year as well. Stuff like reducing the like you know the increase in fee that international students are paying, which now kind of like approaching $60,000 a year. Okay, first degree here, it's crazy. You know, as well as that, I guess like the you know, like the course cuts, like hiring freezes, letting go of staff, especially catalyst staff as well. Like all this is kind of in motion before even like the, you know, like the full effects of the caps have like been played out by like being published by the universities. So I feel like having that as like a campaign we started really early would be quite important. So we can like, you know, kind of establish pressure quite early. I guess as well, it's like, yeah, resisting the, I guess, oh, sorry, like, I mean, the assumption that like these caps like, you know, are just kind of like effects that don't involve students, like, you know, that the university can just kind of institute this, but they don't really need to, there's the SRC or like kind of, you know, publish these things about them. I feel like, yeah, like doing something quite early that involves a lot of, like a very public campaign to students about what these would mean, getting the word out as much as possible, and making this, you know, something that engages all the people who are doubts going to be affected by it. Would also be good.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, that goes back to what students need. Communication. They need to know what's happening so they can know what to care about. There's like a lot of plans that I have in place for how I want to boost getting people to know about things. But the big thing is when it comes to things like international student caps and things like that, we as the SRC have access to info report, what a lot of students do, and especially as president, that they should know about. And especially when we have things like student media publications, we should be giving them that info. We should be circulating that on our official channels because students want to care about issues. They want to know how to get involved with issues, but that requires them to know the issues to get involved with. And that's historically something that, you know, we need to boost our communication on so they can know what's going on in the first place so they can hear it.
Quick communication, yeah.
I feel like somewhat of an elephant in the room is like the biggest student campaign that happened last year was over like universities' ties with weapons companies, like this political event on campus. And a lot of students are really concerned, like a lot of them as well. I didn't know that the university has all these ties with weapons companies. And so like the BBS stuff that you had up earlier as a priority, I think is really important to continue. And like the SRC has all these resources, like they have mailing lists, budgets that can be used to like print things and like even book rooms and
even just on the basis of like raising awareness and so on. Like the SRC can be really powerful if it collaborated with these student campaigns, which again, it's like, and also just was very visible. Like, you know, even just on the basis of like, oh, the SRC should be more visible, then it should take part in like the biggest campaigns that are happening on the campus. Yeah, well, related to that, like the universities, before, attacked a bunch of student activists who've been part of this campaign as well on very spurious grounds. So like a bunch of it is just whipping up a campaign to say that some of the activism we've done, whatever, it's just making campus less safe. Although depending on when people here were at the student general meeting, it was like a very safe, orderly meeting when everyone got to debate out a position and then vote on it. There's nothing unsafe about that. But then also just like flagrant breaking of UNSW's own rules and regulations about the discipline of individual students. Basically, just to say like we don't care about whatever, we don't care about the rules, we're just trying to intimidate people. So I think the incoming SRC has a pretty important role to play with a bunch of that stuff, actually taking a stand against these attacks, partly on the basis of just like Palestine is obviously a major issue that matters to a lot of students. The SGM was endorsed by this SRC, but then now people are being intimidated and disciplined over. But also just like general right to protest, like the civil liberty on campus, like a basic right students should have as people studying at universities to be able to hold protests and so on. So we were talking before about like, I think that we should put out a statement from some of the like main and elite positions, but also just like the new council should all vote a motion saying we oppose all of these attacks and make that public so the university knows the student opposition to this stuff from the SRC as well as the clubs that are being attacked that are obviously going to run a campaign opposing it.
I'm sure actually Conroy might be the best person to talk about this specifically, but so much of this is because campus policy was kind of, you know, enacted under everyone's nose with little to no notice and little to no consultation, especially with student reps on how that would actively affect students and their campaigns, which is so fun and so fresh for all of us, obviously. But that means that so much of that in terms of admin policy roles is to actively, because the unis no longer, like they've shown that they don't care about being, hey, we're working on policy. What do you think, Bestie? It's about actively looking for holes in the policy to amend to make university a better place for everyone at the end of the day, but also for our SRC and the way it functions and the work that we do.
100%. Thank you. So did I encapsulate that appropriately with statements, guides, and policy reform? Or consultation? I'm trying to encapsulate the deadlines. I know you're going to hand up.
Yeah, so just like on the cap, well, our campus policy, I think that's particularly something we need to do. Like this was brought about in the holidays. I had spoken to multiple office bearers in the SRC. I was like, hey, can we do something about this? Can we do it? Can we do some sort of protest? Can we do some sort of engagement?
In regards to what, sorry?
The campus policy, which is basically the changes to regulations about flyering, about what you can and can't do in protest.
Oh, yes.
I was bugging people, can we do something? And nothing was happening. And the extent of what got done was the article I wrote. But if you look at the response from UC, from their SRC, from Honey, through all the engagement they did with other organisations, it was much better. And I think we need to be like more multifaceted with like sort of the issues we're dealing with. And Palestine is an incredibly important thing, and we need to keep putting resources in. But I'd just like to note the SRC did fucking nothing on the environment last year. There was no protests held. There was absolutely nothing done. And our university has incredible ties to environmental industries, but also like the climate crisis has just got like worse in front of these things. And there are like strong links between the climate crisis and Palestine and sort of the dispossession of refugees, what sort of harms that supported missiles, all that sort of stuff. You can connect these issues, but we need to absolutely keep up what we're doing on Palestine, but we need to engage in a broader form of issues that get more students involved in activism.
And also, like, one of those things that I especially have been doing too, mainly for that, the imposter syndrome of being my role, is keeping up with the other universities and the things that their student unions are doing and the things that we're not doing. So a great example of this is the UQ that did the fossil fuels divestment. Yeah, they passed that through their SRC and then their new board to basically be like, hey, from now on, the university is not allowed to have ties with fossil fuel companies. And that passed, and that worked, and now UQ is not allowed to do that. We could totally see something like that happening in another uni and go, oh my God, great, let me enact that into my university. Especially as OBs, it should be, looking at your specific scope, because all of the SRCs have so many things that they do to think with, okay, let me keep on top of what all the other universities are doing for this specific issue that I'm the representative for at UNSW, and how can we do better things for us?
Lovely. I know you had a standing hand before. Was there anything you wanted to add?
It's kind of said already by Jenny, but I can add a bit more just on the stuff about like repression and process here. I think part of it is just the SRC does have a role in being like, it's a body with legitimacy that can push back on this stuff, because it's just not all about the exact policies, because something isn't just telling people just over what's in the policy. Like they're going off a bunch of complaints from people that disagree with the SGM or people that want to like make shit up to try and get discipline claims against people. And that I think that requires a bit more pushback than just amending policies. Because I think obviously if it's like a real thing that UNSW opposes, they could go sort of beyond their policies. I mean, the SRC can have
I want to say on that, the policy itself, the particular problem with it is the vague way it was worded and its all-encompassing aspect. I don't agree that the sanctions weren't put on in relation to the university policies. I think the university policies themselves are incredibly vague, which allow them to put these fringe cases on the policies. Is absolutely linked to the policies, how it's framed, how it's like legally ambiguous, basically.
I can very much substantiate the fact that they're ambiguous as well.
Yeah.
On purpose.
So,
Yeah.
look, we can't speak about the details because it's confidential, but we know for a fact that they're disciplining people about stuff that's not, it's not that it's vague, it's like explicitly it says in the campus policy that people are allowed to do things, but they're being punished for them anyway. So it's absolutely political. It's not just about the know the rules, which is important because the SRC can't just campaign for little changes to policy here and there. It actually has to make a political argument as well.
Adherence to then that policy.
Yes, but also just like the fact that they're under pressure from obviously like a handful of staff members who come up to us at every single rally with signs saying we're all terrorist supporters or whatever. Like that is a political thing that the SRC has to take position on as well. It's not just about the policy. It's not just about being vague. And like
ensuring fair process. Can I encapsulate in that statement?
yeah, I mean, I have details, but we're just not allowed to talk about this because the UNSW's fucking policy. So whatever.
Well, they're not respecting their policy.
No, because we're going to be people that get in trouble for it.
If they don't follow their policies, it's legally challengeable.
Yeah.
And the university doesn't want that to happen. You can,
Well, we have lawyers,
Yeah.
we're dealing with
Yeah.
it, but that just means that what you're saying is not true,
Yeah, it does.
which is important.
well, has a court of law said that?
I'm not at that stage, which is why we
Okay.
can't talk about it. Anyway, I have something else to say.
Yes.
Well, just the way that we run all this stuff matters as well. Like, I think the proof of this year is that if you campaign hard, and that means like not just having a campaign exist in the ether and then just sort of like talking about it in SRC meetings, but actually like on the ground talking to students building something. You can make massive things happen on campus. Like that was the SGM. That didn't happen because just hundreds of students on their own wanted to go to a Carl side event. There's obviously like sentiment there, but it just means that SRC resources are put into building something on the ground, putting up the posters, actually like spending the time to make sure the social media is hitting people and not just like going into the ether and whatever. Then you can mobilize students around stuff. So a bunch of this is really great. And if we wanted to do, like, for example, another student general meeting or an EGMs around the climate and so on, that's good. But you have to like do it properly. So I think the change in composition on the SRC means that like we have an opportunity really to change what the SRC has been. So rather than it being a body, which is not the fault of anyone in this room, but just a body that, you know, normally meets once a month, discusses some things and then goes away. You can instead be a body that's actually about running these campaigns throughout the entire month and building stuff that's really worthwhile. But that just means that people who are elected need to actually like put in a bit of work on the ground.
I very much agree with that, and that's why SLC work should, and the meetings and collaborations with SLC officers should be not just constrained to those monthly meetings. You should be meeting with your fellow officers and your fellow councillors outside of these meetings and collaborating in creating campaigns, ensuring that they have tangible plans, have tangible outcomes. There are spaces for collaboration. They are continuously being reflected on in trying to get towards a specific number of signatures, because again, like I said prior, numbers help a lot in the campaigning process and having that student support. So very much in support of that. Thank you. Yes.
For communications, like we have our newsletter, but we also have other means of student journalism. I'm going to flag OBs. I know I've got a request to comment from Gavin Murray writing about all the OBs who recently got in. So obviously forming those connections with those writers, because they're going to be the people who are yelling about us, possibly yelling at us depending what we do. So I think forming those connections wherever they may be is very important to get people interested, not just so it's us constantly having to yell about stuff, but getting other people to have conversations around us. And the more conversations that are existing around us, the better, because then the more talk of us, the more of us there is.
Lovely. To add to that, actually, Gavin Murray reached out to me and asked what the SRC felt about having monthly spaces in the Gavin Murray articles for a little rundown, right? And I said, well, I'm outgoing, so that depends on the future of the SRC. Is that then, will that provide us then the space to talk to those?
Yeah, I mean, that's like a literal space that they would give us. I imagine similar to Honiswar, USID, how they have OB reports posted.
Historically, that Gavin Murray has published OB reports in, like, if you look back like 10 years ago or whatever, it's like, that's a great resource to see like what the SLC was doing in the past. And it'd be great, like, not just through Gavin Murray, Southern Noise Club, but like, it would be great to also do that through Noise, have multiple like outlets that like people go to, and like the more like it's great to have media diversity, and having our presence across at that diverse media helps reach a larger presence overall.
That's good. Yeah. Well, the more people hearing that about us, the more people talking about us, the better.
And also, really big takeaway from the student conference that was if something really big's happening on Honiswar, like Forever, all the other uni papers, they're not just students who care about what's happening with their university, but people who read them are students that care full stop. And so having that outreach to other university papers, if we're doing something, or if something's happening to us specifically, it doesn't just have to be the university students, so we can really eat it out broader, making sure what's happening on campus is melanating broader discussion.
And then also not just like making the SLC more public, but like if the university is doing something that like we don't want, that we don't, and that would look bad, like suppressing the right to protest looks bad for the university, especially when they have been so, freedom of speech and all that, especially like not shutting down transphobic lecturers and that sort of thing, letting people like go and say very ableist things on like TV and being like, yes, it's totally fine that they said that because freedom of speech, you know, some people do freedom of speech, except for the fact that no students who are not allowed to do freedom of speech, that like looks very bad. So like that's another pressure that adds on the university.
Do we have any other points that we wanted to raise, or I guess what we believe students students need? I did, if you didn't notice, sneakily added 56/short extensions because that was a topic covered online, but I also know in our personal conversations when I've been walking around the room prior, that was the point of strong interest. I know that line of stuff. Yep.
Digital student IDs for students.
My question is, what is the application for digital student IDs? Because the two places that I need my student ID are one, to get a student accommodation, which I doubt the digital version will do, and two, to have out during exams. And I feel like they will not have that as an option because academic integrity and having a program.
The light rail. The light rail. That's the light rail.
Do you get into the library as well after hours?
But like
The light rail is the main one because I've got friends who leave their student card at home and they got a photo of it. That's not good enough. They got a $200 fine.
I think that would be super easy system to put in place. We're not.
I'm not saying we shouldn't do that. I very much what I'm just saying that it's not going to be easy. It's just like thinking from a cybersecurity standpoint, like that's a very difficult system to be putting in place. We should definitely be doing it. But I support it, but like it's one that's going to take probably a few years to implement.
Oh yeah.
The amount of like privacy not even describes legislation, but like working out how the university is going to protect that data, working out like the long-term storage plans for all that sort of thing, is all quite complicated. And even in discussions about what the like IT committee or whatever it's called, like up upper levels of the university, apparently a lot of the things they do don't particularly consider students in their plans, like very weirdly don't like. So it might be it would have to be quite a big push to get that through.
So how do you, would then this fall within the agreement of the SRC? Do you believe?
I think that it would impose like from like the president taking that to academic board saying this is what students want, as well as the SRC like promoting that sort of thing and like trying to show that this is why students need it, like that sort of thing.
Is there, I guess this is a question for you, is there another uni that has done this?
Sydney, as you mentioned, and a lot of unis in Victoria have them, especially a lot of unis in Victoria. What they do is actually not allow like spaces to be accessed by like outside like people who are not attending universities. So they have like the percentages of those uses of the study spaces, for example, are like 99 to 95%, and like during like HSC periods, the only way you can access this, the only way you can access the study space is by using your ID. Because they can tap their phone onto like a reader and then get access to the study space, which means that you have university students actually using those study spaces, but also you don't have to carry a physical ID for that. It's digital, it's on your phone.
Would require an entire restructuring of that the like the ID card system that we currently have, because the protocols, it gets very complicated, the protocols and all that, but like that would require like all the tapping names to replace. So it would if we were even doing like it would be like we have to do it in multiple stages, I guess. Whereas that sort of thing would be like 5 years down the line. So yeah.
And to ensure, thank you for that, to ensure fair inclusion as well, I wanted to also speak to our online team. Do you want to run down what the rest of the gang hasn't covered, what that we discussed in our group?
Yes, I can do that quickly. To be fair, most of it was discussed, like the stuff especially about Food Hub. I know that Michael and I chatted about that, and like the fit to sit, all of that. But one thing that we also talked about was two things. First being the like the avenues for reporting sexual assault on campus, and like how it's kind of it doesn't really include any intersectionalism. I don't know if that's a word, but like there's no, in the report, Michael was saying that there's like literally no mention of the word disability or like race or absolutely anything like that. It's just super kind of inaccessible and unclear, I guess. And so I'll kind of yap about this a little bit more when we do our presentations, but Angela Griffin, who some of you might know, she's kind of like a legend in the gender violence, like the fight against gender violence world. I'll kind of like be working with her to sort of get some consultation on how we can sort of improve that sort of stuff within the power of the SRC for UNSW. So that was the first thing we talked about. And the second thing was the period products campaign. So currently it's only permanent in, I believe it's 10 bathrooms. And they're only in female bathrooms. So what I think also would be good, which does obviously fall in SRC, is expanding that not only to all bathrooms on campus, but like to gender neutral and male bathrooms as well. So just like focusing on kind of expanding that and make sure that they're full. Like every time I go in, they're always empty, and I'll scan the QR code to say, you know, like refill or whatever. But there just seems to be like some sort of maybe miscommunication or misstep, I guess, about making sure they're always full, blah, 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 all of that kind of stuff. So I believe, Michael, was that the other stuff we talked about? I don't think there was anything else we said.
Yep, those are the topics that we covered.
Cool.
I'm horrible at spelling. I apologize, everyone.
No, I'm the same. You're so fine. So hard without autocorrect.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? Any other things? Do we think, are we satisfied with this list? Yeah. I'm just going to add this bit as well. Frequently stopped. Okay, so
But more of the education side, discussing like removing Course failure, 100% mandatory attendance.
Ooh,
That's the thing.
yeah. Oh, fuck, yeah. Yeah.
Even 80% is limit, but 80 to 100%. Like you can have a suspension mark for having course failure, you know what I'm saying? And then potentially requiring annually updated course outlines. So the assessments aren't outdated and leading to inaccurate course rubric.
Also information on what is compulsory and isn't to attend.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't make that, like you make your timetable, and you're like, okay, I assume this is not going to be compulsory, so put it on this day and then you just get stuff over.
Mm.
Yeah.
Or a secret like exam lecture that pops up.
Yeah, they do. And then also,
Yeah, potentially like they have to post a clear message of what is mandatory instead of being the bottom of the course outline.
Yeah, yeah. It should be very much explicitly, like that is part of the requirements of the course outline. So it seems that they're not meeting those requirements. So very much emphasizing the baselines amongst all schools, trying to get that enforced. 100%. As a person that had to attend an 100% mandatory class this term, that is torture. And I'd absolutely love that. So yeah, great.
And this is kind of the same thing as you think, but this is a business office mandatory, but I ran into this trouble this time specifically. Having the contact information for your professor and course convener for every course would be really, really helpful.
Yes.
Mine said, check Moodle, and I checked Moodle, and it was nowhere. And so then I had to like find it from like Googling them on LinkedIn or something.
Oh my God.
Send my course convener an email asking for it.
Also on that, making sure on the new course outline system, it currently has like a tick box for like which of the contacts should be your ELS contact. Every single time I've looked at that is wrong. I've seen it in every course I've had, like the email that's listed there as the ELS contact is not the correct contact for that. So like making sure people are filling out the contact lines correctly, like that's yeah.
For those students that are doing ELS, you don't have to disclose if you're not comfortable, but who has had to interact with a disability academic advisor or an academic disability advisor? Yeah? What's your take?
I mean, I found it all right.
Yeah?
Like, I don't know, like, if you have like HSC provisions, like it's super easy to just get like everything transferred over. So they just looked at what I got in the HSC and like, right, I'll just give you all this over. And I found it pretty chill, but like, I know there are lots of people who are diagnosed later in life and also the disparities like the private public school in terms of who actually accesses it. So like, I don't know, from a personal perspective, it was all right, but I know others don't necessarily have the same interaction and engagement.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think, yeah, one of the things, like I'm somebody who got into ELS my 4th year after failing multiple courses, probably that I would not have failed if I had the proper ELS provisions to, account for that. And I think part of it is that you don't really know what ELS can offer you.
Yeah.
Like that's one thing that we've been talking about. In fact, becoming friends with people on ELS is how I was like, maybe I should apply for this thing. And the fact that it took like, just word of mouth for me to know what ELS could do for me in my learning experience. Because they're kind of just like, we are ELS. We need to try and make learning more equitable. Apply here. What do you need from us? And I'm like, I don't even know what you can give me in the first place for me to tell you what you need.
Conroy was actually talking to me about that. Yeah.
And just like on that, like it's really difficult to even like in the application process, like if you've got like I also had stuff from high school and I could just be like, okay, here's this. But also like when I was like, okay, actually I need like stuff like physical disabilities now, like what can you do for me now? And it was all very difficult to even like, can we unless we can do anything for me? Like being able to find that out, you can't find that out from the internet. Like, that those information does not exist. Working out like what you can do, like required talking to other people, working out that they had what would work for me, then going ELS and being like, hey, this is a situation, this is like a specific thing I am worried about, or a specific situation I've ended up in the past. Like these are things that people have suggested to me. What can you do? What can you offer? Instead of like you have to be extremely proactive about all of that.
Yes.
When especially like for a multitude of reasons that might be very difficult. Yes.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think a great solution that Conroy put forward as well, and this is again something for Adia's decision, but one of those things that Conroy said to me was at the beginning, SRC pushing that at the beginning of each of these classes, so advocating within the individual schools at UNSW, a rundown or a synopsis on UNSW supports facilitated via SRC, right? So as a way of building our awareness of us, but also building awareness of supports. Yeah.
But also, I've talked to multiple people through about this because it's been my recent, like this week, this has been on my notes. Academics need better training. Or what is ELS? What does this mean? Like recently, I had a course where I had an ELS extension, and then it just did not get applied, even though
Yes.
I'm academic. And I assume it's because they're a casual academic who just like, tutors 1 or 2 classes. But because of that, they don't have the training on what it means, that you have to put it through Moodle, that it doesn't auto apply it, that they need to specifically like deduct marks.
And they're probably underpaid and all sorts
Yeah.
of like
So-
PhD students too.
The issue, so there's a shortcoming. This has been something I've been tackling since disabilities all start. Is that the shortcoming of the disability academic advisor, whose job it is to essentially be that point of contact. They're supposed to be that point of contact. If a student is accessing ELS in a specific class, and the professor does not know what the fuck is going on, that should be the first point of contact.
Or that I like email my professor and be like, hey bestie, why did I get deducted 50% from this assignment? But I should not have to be actively checking all of my Moodle grades, doing the math to see if I got a 50% deduction. So it's more like I should not have to be proactive, or else there's no point in ELS being assisted.
Oh, exactly.
Also, like, in the times I've had to like seek ELS on like course admin and all that, like in the times where it's like, okay, I submitted the assignment, like it'd be fine if they responded to my emails, but they haven't responded to my emails. And now, you're worrying that entire period of time, like you shouldn't have to wait for ELS to like come and like defend you and like tell the people off basically, and have to like spend that period worrying when you could be like doing more productive things as well.
And confirm that I'm kind of attacked because I got a 0 on an assignment that I did do.
Good thing Conroy's in is gonna fix the whole thing, right?
Okay.
I'll do my best.
Well, I'll be helping you out wherever I can. Yeah, I've actually had the pleasure in my other advocacy work. I've watched how all the other universities do it. While they're all fucked, I think they can all learn a bit from each other, smash them all together. So increasing awareness of services like ELS amongst staff and students, and building on their effectiveness. Lovely. Okay. Now that we've established all of that in our lengthy, strong number of ambitions, is it overwhelming? Feeling overwhelmed? We feeling overwhelmed? Great. Now you're SRC members. It's a rite of passage. Okay, so now that we've established that these are the goals, these are their aspirations, right? Who wants to do what?
I go first because I feel the banks down.
Okay, of course. Oh yeah, you have a trek away to you. So what are these things that align with you? Where would you want to put yourself?
I'll sit down. Well, obviously the stuff I've just discussed on ALS, so a big goal for me is like actually amplifying the services. Making sure at the start of every course, the teacher's giving a rundown of like, hey, here's what's available, somewhat detailed outline on it, but also like at a week and at like major student events, like there should be stalls and there should be people handing out for all the different services. Also, like the Students with Disability Collective itself, to me, is doing more work. I think I saw posters at the start of last year, but nothing else, no emails, no social media posts. There needs to be like active flyering, postering, using those email connections, like engaging with, I don't know, other collectives, like at UNSW and other.
I'm glad you saw my posters before Ian took them down. That's the reason why you haven't seen the other posters.
Okay. No, I liked it. But
That was my
anything
wall with
for
the,
but working with other unis, the UCID office, the disability officers, they're friends of mine, they're very good people, so I'll be working with them. Getting a bit of activism going as well, which is kind of dead. I was saying to you earlier that Bill Shorten's taken a role as the VC at University of Canberra. So when he inevitably comes here I and hopefully others will be there in a microphone shouting at him for his NDIS cuts. I guess the other stuff, which wouldn't be me specifically, but I guess putting the disability lens on it is like universal short extensions and ending fit to sit, because like they affect every student and they affect disabled students disproportionately. So that's like, I guess in terms of putting the disability lens on it, I'll do that too. But also I think like with the anti-protest rights, like if you see the way like management has been like putting protests into a corner and ban it off, that's not accessible. That's not accessible for a disabled student to be part of, but also like they just put banisters in the middle of walkways sometimes. How are you going to get past? So there needs to be like, I guess in terms of like applying the disability lens onto why we need to fix that. That's like, yeah, something we can necessarily do. But obviously trimesters and course cuts, that's something I can also put the disability lens on. We're more likely to suffer burnout, and also like, I have a feeling some arts courses about disability issues are probably going to be cut. Let's be real.
Even law already took the cuts. All the
Yeah.
disability law ones
Yeah.
been cut.
Yeah.
Sorry, no,
I was gonna do that. Okay, that's.
disability law and policy is gone.
Like,
It's,
like graded on or?
Yeah, it's gone. It's still on the page for some reason, but it's been gone since the beginning of the year.
it's just 1 week in human rights law, right?
No, there was one actual core disability policy and law.
Yeah, but I mean nowadays it's just 1 week in the human rights course, right?
But try half of a lecture.
Okay, that's so
Yeah.
fun. I love roller.
But yeah, also like in terms of housing, like in terms of advocating for housing policy on campus, we don't just need more housing, but we need housing that's like actually accessible for people with like a range of issues, whether they're wheelchair users or it's got like sensory spaces or whatever. So, you know, in terms of the housing campaigns that come up, that'll sort of be
The head of housing is keen to do it to be more accessible. Happy to line you up in a conversation with her.
Yeah, and yeah, I think that's about it. I can probably find a way to bring the disability lens to just about everything on there, but I guess those are the sort of main things for me. But the main priorities: one, amplifying disability services; two, fixing the disability collective, getting it doing stuff; and yeah, three, just like general culture of activism.
Well, now you have, that's great. Now you have some tangible outcomes and focuses. I'll be sharing these slides, of course. Now you have some tangible outcomes and focuses. Start thinking about a timeline as to how you're going to be doing that before you get to December 1st. When Dia organizes that one-to-one meeting with you, that's when you'll be discussing that timeline, and she can help you link up with whoever wants to be collaborating on those type of things, and then come forward and build on that campaign. So that is something for you to do. I know you need to go.
Yes, and that's my presentation as well.
Lovely.
Yeah, cool. I'll see you on Thursday.
See you Thursday.
Sorry, what time is this?
5.
Should we do This is not the presentation. This is not the impromptu presentation.
No.
We made slides. Oh, okay, there's slides. So yeah, we would totally make slides.
Yeah. Okay. If we want to do that, do we want to do that? Yeah. Lovely. Okay. What I'll do is I'll share this around as well, and people put down their interests.
You can just go through one by one.
Oh, sure. Great idea. Okay. So, health services and psych services.
What is this? What's the question?
Oh, hands up for whichever you want to kind of like delegate your time to in your future your future capacities. Res. Yep.
Is this just for like officers?
No. Yeah, everyone. Yeah, it's everyone. Every single SRC member should be getting involved in these. Cost of living relief.
Not for everyone. So
Will you be?
assume my hand is up for everyone.
Okay, a lot of councillors.
I forgot to say one more thing before I go.
Mhm.
More accessibility information. So on routes of campus, but also when clubs are holding events, that they provide information as to whether the venues are accessible.
Yeah, this year we had a consultation with our on accessibility events. I do mine as a protocol for like cultural sensitivity of international students, because the international students obviously don't love that. But I assume that disabilities, if they did their job, would have done that consultation. So Art now has a guide on how to make events more accessible. but I think that you will have to do it for them.
I always had to go without.
For obvious reasons, I think you have to do that yearly, because it was not done when it should
Like everything.
I'll be it else. Don't worry, Conroy. Thank you. Yes. So sorry. Who did we have for cost of living relief? Yes. So throwing down the positions. What other collectives, sorry, did we have engaged?
Education.
Lovely. Food hub and resourcing. Yep. Lovely. Thank you. Caps on rent. Council, that's Ed and Welfare. I think we can skip the grants. Emergency housing. Yeah, as well. SRC clothes and kit drives.
Let's also quickly add for us, clothes drives for collectives, if you need some clothes. Freeco has a lot of donations.
Oh, good to
So
know.
if you need something to jumpstart a wardrobe in any space, we
Drop some off to disability space whenever you get the chance.
I can get a bag. So,
Lovely. Do you know where they are?
um,
Do you know where the disability space is?
yeah, it's in that collective. Like,
Yeah, the clump of collectives.
Yeah.
International student caps and fees. Yes. Wait. Trimesters and course cuts. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's also.
Communication. Oh, that's everyone pretty much. Divestment. Yep. Ethnocultural. What do you think towards that? Sorry, everyone. I appreciate your patience. All my current officers are used to this, me being this slow. Protester rights, I assume I'll just place that under everyone. Fit to sit, short extensions, digital, everyone, yep. Addressing UNSW's response to the climate crisis, I assume our environmental officer, environmental collective. Yes, okay, avenues for reporting. I think that should be a UNSW, sorry, an SRC wide thing. For an intersectional approach, we need a whole team approach. Okay, expanding period products campaigns to all bathrooms on campuses, including gender neutral, including frequently stocked. Yep.
Me.
Yeah. Really?
I was waiting. I was like,
You're just waiting for that one.
I know.
Removing course failure for 100% attendance quizzes and updates of course guidelines. Yeah, probably still. Increased awareness of services. Yeah. Does anyone want to support Conroy in the increased awareness of services?
Like just in terms of like the practicality of it.
Yeah.
Very, you know, press.
Yep. See, I think welfare. Accessibility of events. You guys got a lot on. Yeah, lovely. Okay. Now with that, we'll go towards the individual presentations. How would we like to do this? Do you have slides? Would you just like to stand up and speak? If you want, you can connect your computer if you have a USB-C or a HDMI connection. If not, email the slides to President, SRC President. I think that probably be best. Would anyone like to go up? Start first?
Would it be easier if I do mine first to get it out of the way? Like
That is a great idea.
Yeah, because it's just a bit wonky online. Here, I'll even pop my camera on so you can all see my face.
Right. Do you want me to give you sharing rights?
Okay, I don't have like slides. I have like a document where I've popped down my things, but there's no kind of visual elements unless you guys want the talking points to follow along.
Okay, we can listen to you. We like listening to you.
Okay, slay. Okay, let me find my doc. All right, cool. And everyone can kind of hear me okay? Are we good? All right, cool. I apologize if there's like any lag or delay, and also because of my voice because I'm sick. So, all right. Okay. So I'll kind of keep it short and brief, I guess, but there's probably three main things that I want to chat about that I guess are part of my vision for the women's officer. So as I've mentioned to Michael before, and maybe a little bit as well to your other guys, was this idea of a commission into sexual assault on campus and increasing accessibility and kind of those reporting avenues for gendered violence. So some of you may know Angela Griffin. So she was an ex-women's officer and also ex-SRC president. And so she is actually doing her PhD on gendered violence on campuses. And she works as a research assistant at the Gendered Violence Network here at UNSW. So basically what I'm going to do is get in contact with her, get her expertise, her advice, her insight, her intel, all of her research to kind of, I guess, advise me and advise us on what we can do in order to improve that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'll kind of be, I guess, hinging off her and relying on her sort of expertise in order to figure out how exactly to do that. But that will be happening soon. I'm getting in contact with her soon. So obviously we'll keep you guys all updated on that. So that's one of the plans. The second one, which has already been mentioned, is the period products campaign. I think I've literally we've all said enough about that already, but basically it's because it's only permanent in 10 bathrooms on campus at the moment. And when I've been in there or whatever, it's like never full, right? And it was something that literally has just come up 5 minutes ago. Is one of the bathrooms, a little birdie told me, one of the bathrooms that is in the building right now where you guys are, has a kind of a container where people have just popped period products in because there was no sort of centralized service for it. So people have like taken the initiative to do it themselves. So clearly there's an obvious need for this, and not just in female bathrooms, but in gender neutral and male bathrooms, because we know accessibility is super duper important. So I guess I would be chatting to Amandi, who is the old women's officer, who I believe was like kind of head of that campaign, I guess. So I'll be chatting to her to figure out on how to expand that and figure out all that kind of stuff. So the third thing that I kind of will be focused on is the physical space of the women's collective. So I'm kind of taking inspiration from the queer collective space, which I think is such like a lovely, bustling, kind of participating, welcoming, opening environment and atmosphere. And so I want to kind of work to improve the physical space of the women's collective to just make it a little bit more inviting, welcoming, all of that kind of stuff. And I guess what also comes along with that would be increasing participation at meetings and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's I want to just get a kind of nicer sense of that physical space as well, so we can have it a little bit more accessible and enjoyable for participants. And another thing which kind of comes onto that, I guess, is more events as part of the Women's Collective. So especially those involving collaboration. So collaborating with QueerCo or Women in Politics, so WIPSOC, like just all of these different societies having events. My aim would probably be at least one per term minimum, even if it's something as simple as just like, I don't know, a picnic where we all, that maybe there's like some sort of issue that's been prominent and we all kind of come together in solidarity and have this kind of picnic or chat about things. I don't know. I have ideas, but they will come. So just having, I guess, the kind of goal is having those more events where people can feel welcome to attend to. And obviously some of that would involve fundraising, say going to mutual aid or to charities directly to women or to issues affecting women. So yeah, basically aiming to foster connections, relationships, and empower women of all backgrounds, back to that intersectionality thing, which I definitely find is obviously very, very important. That's where I'll be basing a lot of my year as an SRC officer on. And lastly, I guess the reason that some of these things obviously aren't, like, basically what I'm trying to say is I'm open. I want to listen to women. I want to hear what people actually want. I don't want to come into the SRC and be like, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this. If someone comes up to me, or like if I hear that this thing is affecting someone, this thing is like, they want this to happen, obviously I'm going to take the steps to do that. So I guess the last thing that I'm saying is I'm going to listen to people and figure out like exactly what they want. So yeah, to be confirmed, I guess, about that fourth point. So yeah, that's kind of, I guess, my sort of vision, my summary. I hope that all kind of made sense, and obviously feel free to ask me any questions or concerns or anything about any of that stuff. And if you want to help me with any of that, please do.
Thank you so much. Thank
Cool.
you. Does anyone have any questions? No? If not, we'll move on to the next person. Thank you a bunch. Who wants to go next to have any slides to present? If so, send them to me. Yeah, you have slides? No? Yep, cool. Yeah, please, thank you.
Cool. My name's Emma. I'm going to be the environment officer.
Could you stand, sorry.
Oh, the camera.
This thing.
Sorry. This year? Oh, it's right. And basically, like, it's pretty obvious the climate's getting worse, like, not better. Right now, I think there's going to be, like, massive cyclones in Queensland, huge floods again. Who knows what the summer will bring all around Australia. And while climate's not been, like, the key issue in the past year because of Palestine, I think that going into next year, I want to try and find some space for it on campus. And it's still like a key issue for young people. So try to find ways to connect with them about this issue that they care about and test like a bunch of different things out, I think, to try to draw people into the kind of climate space. So I want to like establish collective meetings, get them going again, have a presence at the O Week and the SRC stall, test out some petitions to see what people kind of care about. I think also like the elections will be early next year, like the federal elections. So following that too, because I'm sure climate will come up there, seeing what people think about like Labor Party, Greens kinds of stuff that they've done this year, which like hasn't been good. Like just recently Labor established about 3 coal mines, giving them license to operate for another 50 years or something, which is like crazy. So seeing if people are following that kind of stuff, I do want it to still be like an activist-based office. So like, I think where we can, like we should have protests against our own union involvement in it too. Like when I raised before, there's lots of connections between the fossil fuel industry and this campus. So seeing what space there is for that. And also supporting like off-campus initiatives, like people might follow Rising Tide. They do the blockade up in Newcastle. They block the port every year. They do stuff all year long as well to kind of build that. There's other left-wing activist themes in the climate in Sydney, so like helping them out as well, trying to bring UNSW students to those events too, which I think would be really beneficial. And like other things too, like forums and finding like educational opportunities, collaborating with staff, or again, like other activists who have been doing this for a long time. Yeah, and also I know that the office has to meet with the sustainability officer with ARC, which I don't really know what that looks like, but the thing about like getting funding for implementing SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, or the EDIs, like seeing if there's like something we can collab with on that and do that on campus and get extra funding for. I want to look into that kind of stuff. But overall, I also think the way you build presence and the way you build a left-wing like activist culture on this campus is by finding what people care about, building that, getting them involved, because the more people who are involved in any issue makes it easier to get them involved in other issues that they should care about too. Like people come into things for a single issue and then it opens their eyes up and they want to fight around other things too. So I think also I will be supporting whatever other initiatives come up on the council, any activist ones as well. I think that there will be massive attacks on our education through the like cuts that are happening to the international students. Like I will be supporting those to bring students out to those as well. And I've also been one of the key people doing on Palestine stuff this year. And I think it is important that the student general meeting has been the biggest activist event I've ever been a part of on this campus. That rarely happens here. And that I want to continue building around Palestine too, if it continues to be an issue for people, because I just think generally that is good for any issue that we kind of fight around. I don't think we have to be penned in to just like the office bearer position that we have. We should all be collaborating on a bunch of different issues. So that's kind of my plan for the year, basically.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah. Slide?
Yeah, we've got slides.
Oh, fine. Gmail. Oh, yes. If you want to connect it, be my guest. No worries.
Is it now? Was it up before or is it now this?
There we go. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a bit fiddly.
Hopefully it is. Yeah, state of the gaze, we love Canva templates. Okay, well, we can just go off.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's back. It's gone.
No. Not.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay. So state of the gaze, obviously us as two queer officers. That's great. Okay, so Alice, she, they, and you can find me on Insta at alice.queer. That'll be my public facing queer officer account. So anything that's needed there as well, obviously official emails. And then
Yes. Hi, I'm Ren, they, them, and that's just my personal Instagram. I likely will be making a more public one for this sort of thing, and a bunch of resources that you'll be able to find me on my website and all that, but that's currently under construction, so.
oh yeah, Canva templates always come through. All right, so I guess my vision going into this is in the context of increasing queerphobia, emboldened by, the last week in the US. Obviously, people here are going to get emboldened by those results. There's going to be more stuff happening here. So it's important to foster a resilient queer collective that can fight and, most importantly, survive autonomously. I believe that can be achieved through queer code mutual aid programs internally. That is something that we can run with existing infrastructure, with consultation with members who actively partake in mutual aid. I'm also looking into queer code protest contingents in collaboration with groups we've already worked with, such as Pride and Protest and Quack at UCID. Forming inter-uni connections like that can really foster a great movement that isn't just separated just into our collective. And then also very important is the fight for our queer space on this campus, which we'll go into a bit more in a moment.
And this stuff's pretty basic. Basically, the Queer Collective should be acting both as an activist body and as a place for Christians to come together and have a community, have a place that they feel safe. So like we should be pushing both to make sure that we are like ensuring that queer rights are being furthered and being understood on campus, being taken into account, and making sure the policy reflects the needs of students, as well as just having a place for Christians to come together and be comfortable with them, somewhere at least.
Yeah, so going more into protest, I guess, yeah, forming protest contingents, which we're already looking into leading up into the Trans Day of Resistance, which is coming up. We'll have some posts about that on the Queer Collective page coming up, so keep your eyes out for that. And yeah, working with Pride and Protest and Quack, we've already got a lot of connections with them, so it's about continuing that work as queer organisers in a space that's going to increasingly come under attack. Creating mutual aid platforms. Want to be very clear, it's not charity. People aren't charity cases. So, and this basically it's a program that can be run internally so our members can support each other no matter what sort of circumstances they're in, because as we know, queer people can be very easily kicked out of homes when their parents start getting a bit emboldened by certain things. And we know there are certain struggles which only queer people understand, and so queer people can support each other. And then, yeah, this is something that will be informed in communication with existing Indigenous mutual aid organisers. Mutual aid is something with a very deep connection to Indigenous and Black organisers, both here in America and all across the country, across the world rather. And then our queer space, basically the rundown, it's not secure. There's talks of capital works happening in the building.
Works are confirmed.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. Vaguely for 2025, so we don't know exactly the timeline of that, but we have not been given any sort of guarantees for our space. And so we understand that we may have to fight for that space, be that through official means or going outside of official means. It will depend on advice we get, both legally and within working with state management.
Yeah. And it's the Queer Collective has been fighting for a new space for a number of years. We've been in this space for 21 years now. It's not a great space. It's not wheelchair accessible. It's got asbestos in the floor and the walls. There is no clean drinking water. Security is running around all the time outside. So we have been needing a new space. It's way too small. We break fire code often. Yes. We are going to be kicked out of this space, to be clear. With the capital works happening in that building, we will be kicked out. We do not know when. Other than 2025, there is no new plans. There have been fights with state's management for years. We need to continue these fights, try to see if we can actually achieve it this time. And if they won't play nicely, then we'll have to escalate that. We also want to continue the success that we've had with plenty of social events that helps engage the collective and forms a strong community through movie nights and other small scale events. We would like to work on having another queer ball. We had one this year. It was very successful for the first time that this has been held at UNSW, at least in many years. And we would like to have some events during Mardi Gras that not only celebrate progress, but honour the community's history of protest. The gender neutral bathrooms campaign is very important. It has been going on since 2014, and we've achieved 3 bathrooms. Not only do we want to demand the university make there be more gender neutral bathrooms, which isn't complicated structurally, they basically just have to change the sign. We also want to increase that to gender neutral ambulant bathrooms. Ambulant bathrooms are a different type of accessible bathroom. They're different from a regular accessible bathroom in the smaller, they're for people who don't have large mobility aids or need help. Being able to leave accessible bathrooms to the people who absolutely need them, and being able to create these other bathrooms on campus would be really good. I think that there are, as far as I know, there are 0 gender neutral ambulant bathrooms on campus. But it's impossible to know because there are no maps. There are no maps that feature gender neutral bathrooms or ambulatory bathrooms. So that would be something that we should fix. And wouldn't be particularly hard. And also we want to do collaborations with societies. We already have very good relations with Queer Students in STEM. I'm the EDI officer of Queer Students in STEM. We have connections to Sapphic Society. We want to continue those relationships and continue to hold events together. We would also like to look into doing a queer edition for Noise if paper publication might be happening. So it would be great to have historically, Thorongha has had issues where members of the Queer Collective and Queer community at UNSW have been able to submit pieces, and that's been the entire edition. This is a similar idea that would be happening throughout both the Queer Collective and through the societies collaboratively.
Yeah, I think that hits most of our points pretty much. So
Lovely.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Cool. And I forgot to not flag this sooner, but having these meetings, having these presentations today is also a great point for councillors or any other officers that may have some shared ambitions or don't really know what they want to do. It's a really good point to have these things and to know what you want to link yourself up with, know who you want to contact. I guess getting that momentum and constructing timelines and working on campaigns throughout 2025. So I thank you so much for such an aesthetic presentation. Greatly appreciate it. Who else wants to come up and present? Your hand was quick draw. Yep, there you go.
Current SRC talked about this in motions that were submitted last week. But for people that weren't there, there's basically been a small but growing wave of cuts that are happening at universities all across the country. So basically, the international student cap was used as an excuse to just say, well, there's all this fat in the system that we have to get rid of. And campus, vice chancellors at campuses around the country have now just said, there are hundreds of staff that need to lose jobs and hundreds of courses that need to be cut to make the universities more efficient from basically a profit-driven perspective. And the head of Universities Australia is calling for 14,000 jobs to be cut across the country, which is just absolutely outrageous, particularly in a sector that's already had many union campaigns to fight against casualisation, many union campaigns to stop the job cuts that have happened during COVID and so on already, not mentioned the rampant underpaying of all these people and everything like that. So it's already a sector that's very much under attack. And now all of the vice chancellors smell blood again and just think that they can do more. So far we don't know for sure if or what is going to happen at UNSW, but every single other time that vice chancellors and other unis have given a lead, the vice chancellor here at UNSW has used it as an excuse to sack staff. It's just the way that their business model operates. So it's very likely that some cuts will come in the next probably 6 to 12 months type of thing. Basically, they'll look to the lead of USID, which have just announced $100 million worth of cuts and probably copy that model on the basis of that. That's what the GLA should be doing or something like that. So in terms of all of that, the Education Office next year should run a massive campaign to stop all of those, which is what the Education Collective is meant to be used for. So already I've been in contact with Cherish, who's the current Education Officer, about with the National Tertiary Education Union to figure out what they're doing. At the moment, basically the rundown is there's a meeting with management happening soon where if anything is directly on the cards now and they want to announce it before the end of the year, we raise that meeting. So that's happening next week. There's the academic board meeting as well, which is the great stuff there and so on. So we'll know pretty soon if they want to announce it before the end of the year, but it's also possible that they do it in the new year. So I'll just stay in touch with the union about that. So yeah, what that campaign looks like will just have to depend. In terms of other stuff that's happening on campus, one, we should have a proper mobilization for O Week and try to it's the whole thing of visibility for the SRC. No one really knows what's happening. So having an education collective stall that's seriously about preparing students for the fact that there might be attacks on our education happening this year. It should be part of a campaign. Having something serious to build will be important. Both building stuff on this campus, but also we can connect it to the more citywide campaign. Then the other aspect of education campaigning that's happened all of this year is the divestment campaign to kick weapons companies off of our campus. Obviously in solidarity with Palestine as well, but more broadly, this anti-weapons company campaign, which has been the most successful campaign, as people said before, that's happened on campus so far in terms of ability to connect with students and mobilize with them. Even though obviously management have told us to go fuck ourselves because they love making money off killing children. So we want to keep that campaign going and lean on the Education Collective to do that more, since they're attacking the Students for Palestine Club in particular. So all of this year, the Education Collective co-hosted a bunch of those organizing meetings. They got 30 to 40 people every couple of weeks to get together and organize these protests. We want to keep that going and make the Education Collective a real space for both those campaigns. So that probably means the Education Collective will have to meet more regularly than it has this year, rather than every few weeks, just every week or two if there's two campaigns going at once. But I think it's definitely worth doing and taking up all of those battles. And then, the general perspective has to just be organizing protests on campus, trying to mobilize and get out as many people as possible. And then using all of the resources of the Education Collective to build a wider sort of propaganda campaign at the same time to back all of that up. So things like petitions, postering, that sort of stuff, actually mobilizing the SRC resources to help spread awareness about this stuff and then get students out on campus to actually protest against it, campaign against it, and so on. And really the aim should be trying to promote as many individual students as activists on their own right, people that come to the collective meetings with ideas that want to do all the activism themselves and can mobilize other people as possible. That's really the goal for the club. Concretely what that looks like, I'll let you all know after we find out what the Vice Chancellor wants to do to all that stuff.
Lovely. Thank you very much. I have your slides. I'll be putting them up now. Ready to go? So everyone, you can watch my messy emails.
Where's the best place to start?
Oh, between here and that.
Oh, yeah.
Slide, yeah.
Table.
Stable.
It's just loading up. It is not like having this many Google Docs open. I closed these sacred slides. Lovely. I think we'd be good to go whenever you're ready.
Yeah. So hi everyone. I'm Ethan. I'm the incoming officer. And so next slide, please.
Yep.
Yeah. So the sort of the overarching sort of mission statement, if you will, is basically to make the SRC more visible to the general student population, of course, but of course as ethno-specifically towards culturally and linguistically diverse community of students. So next slides. So I've got a couple of policy proposals, and from our discussion, I can see really a lot of areas where we can sort of work together as a team. And so the first one really is the anti-discrimination for Nicola even talked earlier about sort of an intersectional way to report discriminatory incidents, both in addition to gender violence, but broadening the scope of that. And so currently there's a lot of support options, and the navigation around them not always intuitive. You've got psych and wellness, you've got the conduct and integrity office, etc. So for the average student who's sort of approaching that, it's very difficult to see who is the best person to contact. And so I think what this is proposing is basically one-stop shop. Students have the option to make anonymous reports to report discrimination that they have experienced or witnessed, and based on the content of that reporting, those students can then do sort of personalized referrals to other support services. And yeah, hopefully this can be merged under the broad umbrella of like intersectional discrimination sort of reporting system. So yeah, next. Sort of building onto that, I'd just like to see like sort of more multilingual and culturally sensitive information about our support services, because while there is sort of like a centralized website where there's like all the support services you can get, to my knowledge that's only in English. So for students whose like most comfortable language might not be English, that's a little bit difficult to access. And so like just pairing up with like translation services, like I need to do more research into like who the best people to engage with on uni, but basically providing that sort of information in other languages and in culturally sensitive places. Just ensuring that the staff who are actually delivering those support services have that sort of like cultural awareness training to deliver culturally more sensitive like support to the students that need it. Yeah, next slide, please. I think as a broad sort of mission, more cultural events. So there's a lot of really nice events that we've got currently on campus. Like we've got the like international night markets, and we've got like the School of Languages runs something called a Languages Festival, just basically giving students sort of information about like what languages the uni teachers, what opportunities are there in terms of like career exchange, that sort of thing. So like so a good sort of next step would be sort of broadening the scope of them and in getting the active involvement of like cultural clubs, so that students are able to get that all-in-one access to the wide range of cultural clubs that we have on campus. As we said earlier today, UNSW has like the most clubs out of like all Australian unis or something like that. So it is like important that like the clubs are out there as much as possible, and students are aware of that. Obviously they come together at a week, but if you're not an incoming first year student, I don't think many like second year onwards students attend a week. So but for them it's like less opportunities to engage with like the clubs. Next slide, please. And just as a general, more SRC presence. We've talked about this extensively over the planning session and over our discussions. The SRC is not like heaps of exposure to the general student population. While I will campaign, I'm sure similar experiences for a lot of you have, members of the student community come up to me and it's like, I have no idea what the SRC does. What does the SRC actually do? So a lot of students not that aware of the fact that there even is an SRC. So I think what we should do is like having more of that community outreach outside of the OWIC store, which I think is where most students get exposure to become more acquainted with the SRC apart from like campaign. So I think definitely a good starting point would be to have like sort of regular stores where students would come with the SRC representatives, discuss what initiatives the SRC is proposing, what's currently on the tables. The students can contribute their suggestions. And what this is doing is essentially ensuring that we're in line with what the student population is looking for, to ensure that we're sort of truly representative. And obviously this becomes like quite relevant when we're talking about things like student advocacy and activism to create that sort of sentiment of solidarity. I think is a very important step if you want to create an environment where that is conducive to activism and like student advocacy on a broader level. Oh, sorry, next. Oh, okay, sorry. So that's pretty much it. So once again, thank you. Let's make this year.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? Gone once, gone twice, gone 3 times? No? Would you like to make some closing statements?
Not particularly. Thanks for coming.
Mm.
I will obviously be reaching out to you guys for meeting, but more importantly, I literally just got an email from Mark like an hour ago. That we are going to have our first SRC meeting in December.
Woo.
So, I was gonna say, I didn't have the SRC president email yet. But we do, yeah, if there's any substantial inavailabilities, let me know. Otherwise, I'll probably just do the first week that exams are over on the academic calendar.
Yeah.
And then we'll figure out time for next year. Probably be the same time as this year.
Yeah.
Unless there's any substantial issues.
Yep. And again, because it is, you're going to be walking straight into your roles during that meeting. So even if there's no matters for immediate decision, matters for this. Oh, I'm sure.
We've already raised a few today.
Lovely.
We've been sitting on for December because of next year's practices. Or else we just need
There you
to
go.
do dual procedurals. So
Yeah.
there will be things to discuss in that meeting.
Lovely.
So, yeah.
Awesome.
If there's anything I should know now before responding to ARC and saying, there's going once, going twice, the first Monday, 6:30 after exams are done. Anyone have a substantial issue with that?
Can I ask what the date for Monday is?
I can actually check, yeah, that's a good question.
Wait, Dia, repeat that. Sorry.
The first Monday on the academic calendar after exams are done. So that is good. What is it? For days.
Can you give me a date for that?
Yes, I'm opening the academic calendar now. So what's that? So that would be,
The 9th.
thank you. 9th.
We can't do that because National University.
True. National
You can
Entire
move it.
Week.
You can move the SLC meeting
Yeah, that's for that entire week.
to the next
Should
week.
we do the 16th? The week after. Yes.
Yeah.
You guys have conflicts? Anybody else have a conflict?
It's like an online.
Yes, it'll all be online. We will not do it in person because it will be over the holidays. Next year, we'll look into in person.
Yeah.
Why is it being in holidays that we can't do in person?
People won't be here.
I will be overseas for one, then I think that on.
And a lot of people will be going back to their families, whether that be in Newcastle, Melbourne. I think the SLC will be fairly just Saba. Saba.
Fatama! Woo! God's got to mention.
Lovely. And yeah, and it would be a good place and point of reference as well to put forward matters for discussion in regards to any matters that you want to do. But again, the president will be taken from
I
there.
will double check that, from me, to make sure I'm not. Okay. But yeah, tentatively, that entire week of the 16th, assumably the 16th is the Monday, but it can fall anywhere from the Monday to Friday, or it's okay with after 6:30 on any of the weekdays. So if people who work 9 to 5, after 6:30 should be okay.
Yeah.
I will give you guys notice. There will be a notice set a month in advance anyways for that, so yeah.
I want to thank you all as well for listening to me yap at you for about 4 to 5 hours. I really do appreciate all your time. I appreciate you letting me, electing me, probably elected me in for those 4 years that I was in, 3 years I was in. Also, don't leave empty-handed. We have to eliminate all the evidence that there was food in here, so scoff it down, eat it, take a box if you feel like it. So there you go, you get a bit of dinner. But I thank you all so much. Thank you to the online team as well that stuck through that. Have a lovely, lovely day.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, mate. See you all.
Thank you.